Take your time, and maybe you can start.
Maybe we can start with the second speaker, so that I'm downloading the file.
Okay, whatever you want. It's the this is the chairman decision. Yeah, just yeah.
Yeah, is our second speaker here? Maurizio Buora, are you here? Yes, I can see you. Do you have? Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Can you start with your presentation? Is that possible?
Ergün, willst du sprechen, bitte?
Ja, kein Problem. Ich mach das mal. Okay, then I'm going to be speaking.
Okay.
I'm going to be speaking. No problems. Elvin, don't worry about this. I'll start with our paper, and then you'll send it to me, and then I'll arrange it. Don't worry about this.
Okay. So we will have
No
now
problem.
the presentation of Ergün and Maurizio on Eutychios, a bishop of Smyrna in the early Byzantine period.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very kind. I'll start with our presentation right away. I have it here, the thing. So there you go. So my notes, yes. Well, I'm going to speak about one plate of early 6th to mid 7th century AD. So let me just show you my slide first. It's again a large one as Elvin's. So sorry about this. Yes, let me just do it, and so it's going to be okay. Now I'm going to be just trying to download it. Yes, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Good. It should be visible, I guess. So is it? Can you guys see it now or no? Can you guys see my slide right now? Is it okay?
Well, yes,
Perfect. So I start with my presentation.
Yes, perfect. Thank you
very much.
very much.
Thank you. Well, today I would like to speak about a very important marble stele from Izmir. But first, I would like to make an introduction about the situation of Izmir and Izmir Museum's material for early Byzantine archaeology, especially in terms of marble place. So first, maybe I would like to tell you about the bibliographical status of this place. Well, as you know, our knowledge on early Byzantine Izmir, or generally on Smyrna, based on 4 different references. The first will be, sorry about that. Maybe this is, let me try to, yeah. Sorry. I need to unmute Bora. Yes, there we go. Now it is. Sorry about this. Yes, I have to unmute Bora. Yes. Yes, that'll be great if you can. Yes, thank you very much. All right, thank you very much for this. So, our knowledge about Byzantine Smyrna based on this 4 publication. Can you now see slide number 6? Could you see it? Slide number 6.
No, we're still on slide number 3.
Okay, sorry. I'll do it once again. Sorry about this. Sorry about that. I'll try once again because there's a little problem with this. Where was it? There we go. No, I'll try once again. I think this will be okay. Yes, it works.
Yes,
it works. This works out,
perfect.
which is great. Which is great. Sorry about that. Well, as I said, we have 4 important publications for early Byzantine archaeology of Izmir. The first one of that is we know very well, which is Jean-Cécile Cadeau, a British who was born in Izmir and did a thesis for the degree of Masters of Arts for the Classics at the University of London in 1911. And published in Oxford lately in 1938 for Ancient Smyrna, a history of the city from the earliest times. And then we got Nauman and Kantar. This is a very important, important publication. It is, as I said, the Agora of Smyrna. and they just report about the excavations over there. And the third one is of course with the other volumes, Georg Petzel's publication on the inscriptions of Smyrna. So these are the four important things. But at the same time, well, this is a map done by Jean-Cécile Codot for the drawing of Smyrna, and so this is very, very important to show the main places of Smyrna at that time, but that's already outdated. We need some more work on this. So let me just show you about also the sources, ancient sources, classical and Byzantine sources about Smyrna. The first will be Eusebio's ecclesiastical history. Then we have some knowledge in painting your table in the 4th century. Then Sozomenos reports about Smyrna at that time, and Pseudo Epiphanios, we have a little knowledge in his Notitia Episcopatu, and of course in the Chronicle of Niketias Chronites we have some, as well as in Greek Menologion they do report about the ecclesiastical history of Smyrna. Most of us know very well that some of the saints are very famous. For instance, Saint Polycarp is very famous, the most famous from Izmir, from Smyrna, early Christianity of Smyrna. And also the second would be, in terms of the ecclesiastical history, would be Saint Pionius, also related to Polycarpus in early Christianity. So these are the two important major saints that we know from Smyrna. So let me also tell some about the excavations. Well, I mentioned about the excavation by Kantar and Naumann in 1930s, 40s in Agora, the first major excavations, where they found 2 aisles of Agora. Then they also excavated theater. Tomorrow we will have an excursion with our conference group to that place, and we will inspect new excavations in the theater of Smyrna. This is today's situation from Pagos. We will see some more because that's another photograph from 3 years ago or something. Our knowledge on Roman and Byzantine Smyrna or early Byzantine Smyrna is still based on the Agora. That's the most protected building. Let me show you one more from the map, because I was very quick about the map. Well, don't take this map as a scientific map, because this should be redrawn. I'm sure the new excavation has done it already, but I still use this because that's the one which is available for the publicity. All we do know is that we have an Agora, we have the theater, then we have the citadel, which we call Kadife Kale, of Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman period, and even Turkish period, Turkish Republican period, as well as we have traces of a Rue Antique, this is the French map, which is like ancient road, goes up to Porte d'Éphèse, which is the Ephesian gate, which is not existing not even a stone. There is no evidence of this today. So these are the only things we have from this large Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman site. So what I have is that I'm going to present is these are some views of Agora. This one is the Croptoparticus, but my concentration will be especially one particular plate. I would like to show you this plate. But first, I would like to tell some words about the material in the Museum of Izmir, in different museums of Izmir, in the city center of Izmir. I'm not talking about Ephesus or Pergamum or others because they are far away. They're 60 to 70 kilometers far away. So the concentration on the material from Smyrna is more in the Archaeological Museum of Izmir. We have 2 large museums. In 2010, through their permits, I was able to work on their material, on late antique and Byzantine architectural elements in these both museums, mostly in Archaeological Museum, and most of them are depoted in the garden of the museum. Yes, that's so we are now I would like to share with you some of these material. The material has already been published in greater extension by Anastasios Orlandos, important Greek architect. He has this famous publication, Christianica Glypta to Museu Smyrnis, in his Archaeon ton Byzantinion Mineminion tis Elados, in an old publication, 1937, if I'm not wrong, in Athens. Then we have 3 Turkish theses, very important Turkish theses in Çanakkale, in Istanbul, and in Izmir. Well, the most important one is, of course, by Zeynep Mercengöz, Professor Zeynep Mercengöz, who now retired. She did a very, very important dissertation about the late and Byzantine and late antique architecture, especially Lascarid architecture in Western Anatolia, based on different materials, but mostly on museum material, as well as Andic, who worked on the Byzantine pieces in the museum, as well as Ergün. But I should tell one more thing. I would like to add one more thing to all this knowledge. Maybe I just did a long introduction. Maybe it was a little bit longer than you estimated. But I should say there is one guy that we shouldn't neglect to mention, who is Josef Keil, a guy from Vienna, a Viennese, very important for us, because he was the director of the museum of the Austrian Institute of Archaeology in Izmir back in 30s, 40s. Then he became the director in Kleinasiatische Kommission der Österreichische Akademie der Wissenschaften in Vienna. So he had a long way to work on Izmir material. So he had 8 volumes of sketch that he called skizze. And he never published these things, but I think that these sketches are today kept or stored, or I don't know, maybe it's also for public use in Vienna somewhere. I think in Österreichische Akademie, I guess, because I've never seen these sketches. But so many people do report about him, especially Georg Petzel, one of my advisors in Cologne back in 2000s, beginning of 2000 in Germany. He had the opportunity to work on this material and publish his legendary volume on the thing, on these material. So I would like to show you one of these very important ones, so that you will have an idea about what I'm talking about. So we can let me just show you very quickly all the material that we have. Well, I just started with the column bases, then we have capitals, of course, then lots of different capitals, and impost capitals, of course, also too. This 2 blocks I just presented early this morning, and we have lots of embo elements, different elements of embo, and kiborion too, with lots of different combinations. But there is one particular element that I would like to share with you. This is something that we published last year in Russia, in an extensive article, actually. Well, there is one inscribed block that I would like to share with you, which is, the focus, and also, there is something that I would like to tell about it, which is this one. Sorry about this. That's one. Yeah. Okay, that's the marble plate with a Byzantine funerary inscription as a part of. We first thought this could be a sarcophagus, but now we change it. We believe that's an embo. That's an embo plate, definitely, with 2 lines of inscription. Well, as I said, the first person who reported about that was Josef Keil. Then Orlando's published it, but Josef Keil's. I don't know if Orlando has seen his sketch or his notes. We didn't really discuss about that, but the one who really commented it in a scholarly way was Georg Petzel. That was his companion back in 1990, I guess, in his volume number 2, part 2, which came out in 1999 as a Inschriften die Griechische Städten aus Kleinasien, something like that. They got this huge series. So he published 4 volumes of the inscriptions from Smyrna over there. So he was the first person who really presented this material in scholarly world, but mostly in epigraphic aspect. So we worked a little bit on this aspect. And just let me first tell some words about the plate. Do we have time for this, Bazema? Can we say some things about this?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I would like to first present the material and then come back to the epigraphic point, And please warn me if I'm too long, if I like sort of, if I spoke too long, just tell me about it. Okay, so let me just present the material. First of all, let's start with the marble. Well, the marble is something very, very usual for here, because that is a gray veined marble, which we know very well actually from Western Asia Minor. It looks like a little bit Procamasian. We discussed this with Professor Buora in Italy several times in several occasions. If I should define all the marbles in the world as Procamasian, but that's not true. So we believe that it is a local marble. It's a native marble, perhaps from Belevi, not far from Ephesus. It's on the way between Ephesus to Smyrna. We believe that the source should be from there, first of all. Secondly, the marble is crystallized a little bit with lots of veins. And the state of preservation is very important because in the sketch of Kyle, it seems to be intact, but in Orlando's, it seems to be already broken. So there was a fresh damage for this at the beginning of 2030 somewhere, somehow, for some reason, we don't know why. And then I also would like to confess that the piece was kept in the Agora collection, in the Agora Lapidarium in that time, in 1920s, 30s. This is where Kyle sort of realizes this piece or appreciates this piece. He first recognized this piece in Agora. So about the provenance, we cannot say much because Kyle doesn't say anything to us about that. But we believe it is a Smyrnian piece, if not, in the worst case, Ephesus. But the percentage for it to be a Smyrnian piece is higher than the Ephesian. So we believe it's from Smyrna. Why do we believe this? Because the names seem to be related. The names mentioned, two onomastics mentioned in the inscription seem to be related to Smyrna. This is what we believe ecclesiastically in the late 4th century. That's our evidence. Okay, let me just also tell some word about the scene. The scene is very important. 2 peacocks, at least, if not peacock, then 2 big birds, the fat birds, larger than a usual bird, flanking a vase that we cannot really sort of name as a cantharus automatically, because it looks like an amphora first. But we have written an article with Professor Buaro about these cantharus and flanking 2 peacocks flanking a vase. So we came to the conclusion that the vase is mostly cantharus. This vase, which is meant to be the element, the decorative element between these 2 birds, 2 peacocks, right? So we also believe that this should be in a cantharus in a different interpretation. And as you see, the interesting thing about this particular plate is that the vase is larger than the 2 peacocks, right? So I would like to convince you about the genus, about the type of birds, if they are peacocks, if they are doves, if they are pigeons, what sort of birds they are. So we just worked on it just a little bit, and we have seen that in peacock representation, the Byzantine sculptors here in Asia Minor, in Western Asia Minor, they use mostly the elements of these 2 things here. They always use this. And then they also expressed most of their rendering quality with the wings, because for peacocks, the most important part was the wings. And so here we have linear design, linear decoration of wings, where we can see more detail here, like more ornamental detail. But also the feet has been sort of, made in detail. So through this evidence, we would like to identify them as peacock, right? As 2 peacocks. Again, flanking a vase that we know very well from Asia Minor, from the late 4th century. The earliest representation is 4th century. The latest representation that we found is early 13th century. And it goes up to Ottoman tradition, because that's a type of 2 peacocks flanking a vase has also been used by Ottomans for their fountains. They just basically put here at an how do you say like here for the water they put here for drinking, but they put a special instrument here to drink water from there and made it as fountain. So this representation was worshipped or was at least respected during the Ottoman Islamic period, in late medieval Turkish Islamic Beyliks period. Okay, so let me come back to the decoration again. So you would ask me about the meaning of two peacocks flanking a vase. What is this all about? Why do they do this? What did they mean with this? So we believe that this tradition has been first started by the influence of Persians and Babylonians. But that was back in, of course, paganic period. But I cannot really tell you when exactly. It should be an Hellenistic tradition, but was first common or most common during the Roman period. So peacock was a common bird during the Roman period mostly, and it has been understood as a part of paganic element indicating paradise. So peacock was, related to this idea of, paradisial iconography at that time, right? This is what we believe. Okay, so, and how about Byzantine period? What did they think about this? About these peacocks and the vase flanked by peacocks? Well, they believed that, again, these peacocks were representing paradise. And they have done this this decoration scheme, especially for ambo plates in the churches. Some of them were used in kiborion, in kiboria, as a part of decorative element, as a religious symbolic. Then some of them were used in sarcophagi, in private persons, but sometimes, most of the time, for presbyterios, for priests. And in some parts, we also find on some other type of elements, like sort of usual plates. They also use this scenery, right? So we believe that ambo, especially ambos, were related, associated with the scenery a lot in Asia Minor, right? This is what we believe. What we found more at most here in Asia Minor, here in Turkey, was that this particular scene came more in common with the ambos. Okay, this is what we believe. Okay, so now I would like to tell something about the rendering, a little bit, not much, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. I don't want to make you so bored. Okay, if we check it, we come to conclusion that it's a shallow surface. That he has a shallow surface, this relief plate, which is not very usual, because when we check all those examples in Asia Minor, not any of those peacocks are exactly similar with the other. Every scenery, every plate has its own language of style, rendering, iconography, combination, and expression. So what I like about this place and what I like about this particular period of Christian iconography is that there was a certain conservatism with the themes, but each artist found some room to express their own identity with the demands of each customers or each church or each masters, each domani, each orderers of these pieces. So that's an interesting combination for me. So this time, the Smyrnian church ordered a plate with a shallow relief, very shallow relief, and with linear decoration. So this is one of the most shallow way of rendering that type of plates here in Asia Minor. Otherwise, it looks a bit naturalistic, but more, I would say, in caricaturized form. Like, you know, the sculptor has only done the contours, right? The contours, and not much of he did not give much form or much movement to that. But we can get the idea more or less. Okay, these are two peacocks with flanking a vase. So we can. So he was successful with this. So let's come back to the inscription. Well, the inscription is a little bit unfortunately destroyed, but we can make sense of it sense of this most of the part of this inscription. Thanks, Georg Petzel. He was very good in of course he's the he has this pioneer work on Smyrnian inscriptions, of course. We are so thankful for this volume because otherwise we would have no knowledge about Smyrna at that time. This is one of those pieces that he has given birth. Otherwise we wouldn't know much about it. And then there is another person, a PhD student, Zabina Hübner. At the beginning of 2000s, she did a very good work, actually. I appreciate this. But she did not really go in more detail for the names, she needed to be a bit more careful about that. And there is one Greek colleague from end of 90s. She did a very, very good dissertation at the University of Thessaloniki on the Byzantine pieces in Asia Minor I think from the 4th century to 13th century, a large dissertation, which is available in the internet. I put in our literature. And I use it so much, actually. Very good dissertation. She also published this. And there is another colleague from 1960s. I have no idea what happened to this colleague from Germany. I think Ulrich Huttner or something. He has 2 or 3 publications, and one publication is his dissertation on that type of plates on Middle Byzantine. So these are very useful, all of those things, but they did not really recognize all the historical evidence here. So let's start from with reading it. Well, we believe that it is well, I got a better, actually I got a better, let me just sort of read it here. Sorry, very quickly. I'm gonna just find it now very quickly. Yes, well, let me just read it from my thing, from my own transcription. Anene otezan hoy kankelu. Let me just show you also here in the slides. Well, kankelu, okay. Well, you can see kankelu here, kankelu, this part, more or less, kankelu. And then what else we have? Epi tu, esiota tu, episkopu. Well, let me just show you episkopu, yes, and then episkopu, yes, and then in the second part we have eitheu oikonomtos enozomiu presbyteru. Let me just show you the part with the presbyteru, so you can see clearly here presbyteru. More or less, right? Could you maybe read it from here? It's very clear, this part. Presbyteru, Presbyterian, presbyteros. It is very clear. So, 2 inscriptions in 2 lines. Begins with here a cross, we believe, and reporting about 2 names, very important names. The first name is for us, yes, 2 onomastics. Yes, well, let me just tell you, the first one is Euetios, a name that we didn't hear before. Then the second name is Onesimos, which means in modern Greek, useful, Onesimos. So, well, I have a Greek colleague here, and I would like to ask him if they use the same word today in Greece, actually. I will ask right away once I'm finished with my lecture. Okay, so we have 1 presbyteros here, and then 1 episkopos and oikonomos. So very important posts for the early church of Byzantine Smyrna. So far, this name with Euthios was only known, not only, but mostly known in its Latin version, which is Eutius or Vitius. Because you know that very well that most of the Greek names were also known in Latin version for ecclesiastical purposes, because these ecclesiastical lists were translated from Greek to Latin at that time. So we learn a lot about the lists of bishops from these Latin sources, from this, sources from Latin world. Even though we, even though they were speaking Greek and they were Greeks, but, Latin sources are reporting about them. And some codex, like the codex in Stuttgart and codex in Munich, they are reporting about that. And We also find this name in different places, but I think we have the best evidence for this name, for this Smyrnian name, is from Ephesus, again, our neighborhood, from my neighbor. The bishop of Ephesus was in AD 365 to 381, Atheos. So Atheos is more or less known, but not very well known. We are very thankful for de Stéphan for his prosopography chrétien du Bas-Empire, the volume number 3, Diocèse d'Asie, in his Sources chrétiens, which is published in 2008 in Paris by Association des Amis de Centre Histoire de Civilisation de Byzance, which is very important for us. This is the most important evidence for us. So now we have one more bishop of Smyrna through the help of Ephesus, Ephesian sources. So you would ask me, why do I believe that a bishop of Ephesus is also a bishop of Smyrna? Because at that time, Smyrna was an autocephalous archbishopric of the province of Asia, which means the bishop of Ephesus was at the same time the bishop of Smyrna. So this is also showing that this piece is this piece is really from Smyrna. This is what we believe. So there is one more thing, the very last thing that I would like to say, and then I will give the word to Ergün, and I would like to download her thing for retransfer. Until it will be downloading, I will just because it also takes some time. I would like to tell some words about it. Well, I would like to tell as a last word that there is one more term here, which is important for all of us, for all art historians and archaeologists. I would like to pay an attention on this, actually, if I will have some more time for this. Well, let me just tell it. There is one more word here, which is...
Maybe the conclusions. Thank you.
Yeah, very quickly, I will say it in two more minutes. Well, there is a word, cancelli in Latin, cancellus in singular, which means latticework. Here we have it. We are very thankful to Louis Robert. I don't know if I can show you this cancel here. I can, because I was able to see it in the transcription. Let me just check it once again. Sorry. Cancel, where is it? Oh yeah, I found it. I would like to show you this. Can you see cancel here, this part? This is important for us because, you know, why is it important? Because Louis Robert has defined it already in 1966, I think, long time ago, that this cancellos in singular, cancellos, very common in Byzantine Asia Minor, which means, you know, the latticework, like these pieces of this the churches, and here this is one of the very rare indication of cancelli in Latin in Smyrna or in Western Asia Minor. This is important for us because we have all these pieces in churches and we study them in museums today, but we don't know their words. We don't know how they name that in Greek and in Latin, but here we have it. We have the evidence of this, so we are lucky for this. So I would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to thank to my president, Professor Bazema Amerna, for her introduction, and I also would like to thank to Ergün for being patientful, and also apologize from all of you for all these technical problems of today. I'm so sorry, but you know, a little bit problematic today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I have already seen a question in the chat, but I would like to ask you to keep your questions for the end of our session, so we will have the time for discussion. And I would like now to invite our next speaker, please, Ergün Laflı from the Koç University of Istanbul. If we will manage now to see your presentation, I'm very happy to welcome you. And I repeat again the title of your paper, Contextualizing Late Antique Floor Mosaics of Secular Context from Izmir. So
thank you.
Just wait for the technical part.
Yes, well, it is okay. I have the presentation now. I'm trying to open it now. Ergün, maybe you could start a little bit, no?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I will start with greetings to everyone. Sorry for these technical delays. And I would like to thank the organizers of this conference, Dokuz Eylül University, for this opportunity to discuss mosaics of Izmir. Most of these mosaics have been published, and individually some have been studied in detail. Today, I aim to present them as a whole and contextualize them in the early Byzantine Anatolia based on the findings of my thesis. I largely study opus tessellatum, that is mosaics made of materials shaped into cube, and my focus is floor mosaics of the 4th to 6th century. And I will draw some examples from earlier mosaic works as well, such as church mosaics, to better situate these mosaics in the wider context. We can go to the next slide, please. Situated at a strategic location on the Aegean coast of Anatolia with fertile lands, Izmir has played an important role, as we've just discussed so far, as a commercial, cultural, and religious center in many periods, including the Byzantine Empire. Main cities of Asia province are within its boundaries, Ephesus being the capital, as you can see from this map. And of the first 7 churches of Asia Minor, seated in the Book of Revelation, 2 are seated to be in Smyrna and Ephesus as well. Next, please. With these prominent cities, Izmir ranks the 5th in terms of mosaics excavated in Byzantine Anatolia, with 28 floor mosaics and 1 opus sectile in 16 secular structures. These mosaics are in 7 Byzantine cities, which are Ephesus, Nymphaion, Erythrae, Smyrna, Phocaia, Dioserion, and Clozomenaia, ordered by the number of mosaics. I believe it is safe to assume that this number is underestimated, especially for Smyrna, considering the high urbanization of modern-day Izmir. Now let's look at these mosaics in more detail, starting with Ephesus. Inhabited from the Chalcolithic period up to the medieval period, Ephesus was a central city of Western Anatolia and has a long history of urbanization and mosaics. It was a trade hub during the Byzantine period and became a pilgrimage center for Christians. Hence, 1/3 of the mosaics of Izmir survive from Ephesus. And I would like to start with the largest mosaic of the site, Adlitarkan Stoa mosaic of the 5th century, that covers an area of 285 square meters. It stands in front of the terrace houses and is claimed to be a corridor in front of the offices, possibly for the organizers of games, alitarchs namely, or more generally, representatives of leading associations to conduct their business, receive clients, and manage funds. Use of different materials, in addition to stone, that is brick, glass, and marble, not only enable different colors, but also bring out geometric, floral, faunal, and inanimate motifs arranged in 12 fields. Geometric motifs dominate, from very basic ones like squares to circles, to meander, swastika, gilyosh, and the like. And there are also animals and kantaros, as in this field, you can see. Here is a bird with a flower, and this is a classical iconography of birds with kantaros that we have discussed just earlier, adapted from the Hellenistic period to Roman and even to ecclesiastical imagery. And you see a wheel of fortune and a bird in the middle of the wheel of fortune. And the rest of the fields are also filled with geometric motifs, as you can see in the next slide. And in this Adlitarkan Stoa mosaic. Next slide, please. Another public structure, Vedius Gymnasium, has 3 rooms and the palaestra paved with mosaics in the 1st quarter of the 5th century. The total size of the mosaics in rooms exceed 100 square meters. Very diverse geometric motifs, from again basic to gilyosh, diamond, tendril, wave, stars are used. Rosettes and flowers are added to the design. Next slide, please. Likewise, the palaestra mosaic has different geometric motifs, including apotropaic swastika and Solomon's knot, as well as flowers and heart-shaped leaves. The houses can also have similarly large mosaics. We should be in slide 8. Yeah. The whole mosaic of the house south of Celsus Library is another large mosaic of 120 square meters, dated to the 6th or 7th century. Made of limestone and brick, it features wild animals like lion and bull, and marine animals, flowers, baskets, in addition to geometric patterns like meander. You see a close-up picture of a lion versus bull here. The peristyle house above the theater, also called the Governor's Palace, has two mosaics surviving from the second half of the 5th century. Only 6 square meters of the Exetra mosaic remains, all geometric in design, while the apsidal mosaic has ivy tendrils and rosettes, in addition to geometric motifs, including stars, rainbow-style motifs, and diamond. Meanwhile, there is only one emblema surviving from the late antique house in Port Gymnasium of the 5th or 6th century. It features Eros riding a chariot of dolphins, as you can see in this image. Next, please. There are also fragments like this interlaced mosaic from the Byzantine or Bishop's Palace, trichrome geometric mosaic, and a fragment of a boar mosaic with inscription from the Tetragonos Agora. The latter two only have drawings. For the second one, you might ask where the boar is. We know it from the inscription here on the top, and there is an inscription revealing the commissioner, quote, Hasbaros made the mosaic from his own resources, end of quote. Next slide, please. Nymphaeon, today known as Nif in Kemal Pasha, ranks the second with 6 mosaics. All these 6 mosaics are unearthed from a single building, a 5th or a 6th century rural villa. You see the general villa of the villa on the left-hand side. We start with the Animal Park mosaic, which covers the main reception room of 57 square meters. It is called Animal Park mosaic since 77 animals are portrayed in a grid and animals appear in the frame as well. Next, please. These animals are naturalistic depictions. Tok, Talaman, and Atıcı could identify even the species. Next slide, please. In the frame are 2 Anatolian pars and Anatolian tigers that are now extinct. Apart from these, lion, different types of birds, and hare can be seen among ivy scroll, grapes, and weeds. And you can see also a Kantaros in this field. Back, please, to the slide 11. You see a few panels from the main field on the right-hand side. Apart from this, you see a duck swimming with lotuses around. I think you are going a little bit fast. Can we go back to slide 11, please? Thank you. Surrounded by a Gilyosh bench, it is possible to see a duck swimming with lotuses around. Here's a bird pecking at grapes on an ivy tendril on the right-hand side, and you see a cock at the bottom. But there are many more types depicted, and the vividness and variety of colors are achieved through the use of different materials like limestone, marble, glass, and terracotta. All the animals, including those in the frame, are seen in an action rather than in a static pose. As a reminder, this is the reception hall where the landlord would receive his guests and would like to impress them. So this is the most important area of the villa. Next, please. The rest of the mosaics is mostly of limestone and terracotta. They have 4 basic colors, blue, white, red, and yellow, as can be seen from the pictures, except from the last one, for white and black entrance mosaic. They occupy relatively smaller rooms. They are geometric in essence and repetitive in nature with rosettes, Solomon's notes, crosses, with one motif accentuated more, and hence the mosaics are called after them, like rosette mosaic, knot and rosette mosaic, mosaic of crosses. The pseudo portico mosaic is larger, 62 square meters, and there are 8 pointed stars, Wheel of Fortune, Gilyosh, filling the main ground in a complex grid. And it is framed by an ivy scroll with heart-shaped leaves on the border. Solomon's notes, stars, and crosses are apotropaic in nature, and further crosses have Christian connotations. Tok, Talaman, and Atıcı also question whether these animals and the use of Kantaros and ivy scroll images in the Animal Park mosaic are references to the Old Testament and hypothesize a possible Jewish owner. Next, please. 6 mosaics come from Eritrea, Çeşme, another harbor city. They are from 2 houses. The 5th century Peristyle house has limestone mosaics in 3 rooms, and its Peristyle hall is named after the most dominant motif, namely the Kantaros mosaic. It is bordered with oblong diagonals, and the main field is divided into 2 panels. And on the top, there is a Kantaros with sprouting heart-shaped leaves, and below is a geometric arrangement of hourglasses and stars. Rosette mosaic is partly damaged. The geometric mosaic has guilloche, Solomon's knot, and swastikas, while the cruciform mosaic in the peristyle hall of 60 square meters has Solomon's knots, diamonds, ribbons, again heart-shaped leaves, as well as cruciform. Unfortunately, the images of these two mosaics are unavailable for the moment. Next, please. The remaining two mosaics come from another villa. The dating is unclear, vaguely dated to the late antiquity. The whole mosaic of 30 square meters has diamonds, stars, and rosettes in a geometric grid bordered by ivy scroll. The second mosaic is in triclinium, the dining room, which is also quite large with 60 square meters, depicting a vineyard with animals like ducks, pigeons, peacocks, lions, as well as kantaros again. And we come to Smyrna. Next, please. The mosaics from Smyrna are largely in fragments, dated to the 4th or 5th century. Mosaic from the building in Agora West Hall belongs to the second decoration program of the building, which can be part of a bulletarium. Next, please. It's a trichrome, but has many different materials: limestone, marble, basalt, terracotta. Surrounded by an ivy scroll with heart-shaped leaves, it features Solomon's knots, rosettes, in interlaced guilloche patterns. And the second mosaic has no provenance and dated to late antiquity on stylistic grounds. The part that survives is geometric again, with wave patterns, Solomon's knots, chevron, pele, and guilloche. The third mosaic fragment is reported in the 19th century accounts, but its fate is not known. It is possibly from a villa near Diana Thermal in Halkapınar. The motifs or colors are not recorded, yet interestingly, the inscription that reveals the commissioner is reported as Ganimet Diogetes of Femina Clarissima, hence an administrator. Based on the letter types, the mosaic fragment was attributed to the 4th century. The remaining three mosaics from Izmir are provenance to Focaya, Clozomenae, and Dios Hieron. Mosaic fragments from Focaya are found to the west of ancient theater and dated to the late 4th or early 5th century. Apart from the depiction of birds, which is not seen in this image, geometric motifs like guilloche, diamonds, are depicted along with ivy scroll. The peacock mosaic is from Clozomenae. It paves the floor of an apsidal house on the eastern slope of Karantina Peninsula and is dated to the 3rd or 4th century. Made of stone and glass, it features two peacocks again and a crater, and filled with geometric motifs in an interlaced grid. The apsidal house also has an opus sectile floor, the only one in secular context in Izmir. The last mosaic from Izmir is recently found in a salvage excavation in Dios Hieron, now Ödemiş, on the reception room of a villa with a bed. It is a black and white stone mosaic dated to the 3rd or 4th century. The motif is indiscernible and the image is unavailable. Now that all the late antique mosaics from Izmir are introduced, it is possible to draw some inferences based on the numbers with respect to their characteristics. Next, please. Dating of the mosaics is always problematic in general, and this holds true for the mosaics of Izmir too, with less than half of them dated to a single century, and 18% is vaguely dated to the late antiquity. Based on weighted average dating method, more than half of the mosaics are dated to the 5th century, implying a construction boom possibly driven by population growth and rising wealth in the region. These 28 mosaics and one opus sectile come from 16 separate secular structures, which are predominantly residential. There is no bath or public portico among these structures with mosaics, and sites also display differences. For example, all the mosaics of Nymphaion come from a single rural villa. Erythrai, Fokai, Diosperion, and Clozomenae mosaics all cover residential spaces, but note that, except for Erythrai, only one example exists from each of these cities. And there is no late antique mosaic, villa mosaic, assigned to Smyrna for sure so far. Excluding the fragments and those that lack size data, most of the mosaics cover spaces of 11 to 40 square meters, which can be considered of medium size. The largest mosaic floors of Izmir are found in Ephesus, the administrative capital of Asia and the pilgrimage center in the early Byzantine period, like this whole mosaic of Ali Tarkan Stoa of 285 square meters. The basic material for the tesserae is stone, mainly stone, as I mentioned for some of these, and the case of Izmir is no different, but other materials like marble, glass, terracotta are used alongside with stone. In the Animal Park mosaic of rural villa in Nymphaion, all of these materials are juxtaposed. Striking is the rate of occurrence of bricks and terracotta in these mosaics. The use of different materials provides the mosaics with a variety of colors and different reflections of light. Except for 3 bichrome mosaics, all are polychromatic, and significant portion of them have more than 3 colors. These colorful tessera are combined in order to create different motifs. Excluding those with indiscernible motifs, geometric motifs are the most popular among Izmir mosaics, followed by floral motifs, especially ivy scrolls and heart-shaped leaves. Whole mosaic from the building in West Agora of Smyrna is one such example. The inanimate objects, especially kantaros and crosses, are also preferred in Izmir's mosaics, which raise questions as to the motive for this choice. Considering the crossover of this iconography to the Christian context and the dating of these mosaics largely to the 5th century may raise a question of whether they are religious symbols. Christianity disapproved the use of Christian symbols on the ground, and the decree that banned depiction of crosses on the floor was issued in the 5th century. More likely scenario is they are apotropaic in nature or simply allude to the fertility of the lands or wealth of the commissioner. The mosaics of Peristyle House in Etrai, like the cruciform mosaic and the Kantros mosaic, depict geometric motifs apotropaic in nature, such as stars or Solomon notes, along with the cross or ivy scrolls sprouting from a Kantros. Meanwhile, 1 in every 4 mosaics portray animals. The animal album park mosaic of Nymphaion, discussed earlier, is a kind of extreme with 77 animal portraits. The high number and diversity of animals might be referring to the fertility of the rustic villas premises again. In Izmir, there are only 2 mosaics with inscriptions we have discussed so far. In a fragmented boar mosaic from Tetragonos Agora in Ephesus, the boar is identified by inscription and the mosaic's donor, Asbaros, is proclaimed in Greek. The mosaic in the Diana Thermal of Smyrna is also dedicatory, naming Samdokites of Femina Clarissima, Ganimet, as the commissioner. Interestingly, there are no deities, heroes, or ordinary people, or any personifications of abstract ideas, cities, rivers, etc. in these mosaics. Merely Eros, the god of love, riding a chariot, is seen in a medallion. This is the only remaining piece with a human figure from a mosaic floor in Izmir. Excluding the faunal representations, it can be said that Izmir mosaics are largely aniconic in this respect. Slide 20, please. So how do these mosaics of Izmir compare to the mosaics dated to the earlier periods? Let's look at some examples from the sites we covered so far. Ephesus. Terrace House 2 from Ephesus have more than 60 mosaics in total, and they reflect the trends in the mosaic craft from the 1st to the 3rd centuries. Can you move? Next slide. The next one. Yes. These mosaics reflect the trends in the mosaic craft from the 1st to the 3rd centuries. This was when the Italian-style black and white mosaics were also very popular. And in the West, and the largest group of black and white mosaics come from this Terrace House too. You see, there are black and white purely geometric mosaics, as well as some color added, like a stripe of the red tessera in these mosaics. Geometric motifs dominated the mosaics of the terrace houses, while figuric depictions were combined with them from the middle of the 2nd century, as in this lion iconography, where the lion is framed by a red stripe and gilyosh band, and below a geometric band highlights the image. Apart from this full-size lion iconography, there are busts of deities in emblemas like Dionysos and Medusa mosaic that you see here on the left-hand side bottom, and it is surrounded by geometric motifs. The difference between these figural depictions is there is no epigraphic identification, but the attributes of these deities or heroes reveal their identities, like Tirissus for Dionysos and hair of snakes for Medusa. The first level mosaic in the building in the Agora West Hall in Smyrna dates from the 2nd century, preceding the one I discussed earlier that you see just below it. Since the building went through a renovation in the 4th or 5th century, it reflects the changes in taste, or rather trends, in the mosaic craft. The geometric motifs remind us of those of the terrace house, with repetitive character, versus complicated grid style of the later version that you see at the bottom. The last example is from Smyrna. It's a very recent finding, which I came across on media. It is unpublished as yet, according to my knowledge, but this Erotes with Cox is dated possibly to Hellenistic period, supported by style and rare iconography. These mosaics attest the continuity of mosaic art from Hellenistic to Roman and then Byzantine periods. However, there are also discontinuities. See the Roman mosaics from the Pergamon and Metropolis on slide 22. One back. Thank you. Pergamon was a renowned center of mosaic craft in the Hellenistic period and the hometown of the most famous mosaicist of the time, Sosos, maker of unswept room mosaic. However, there are no floor mosaics from the Byzantine period. Here you see mosaic of masks in the building Z. I think my presentation is off. I will continue reading then. A mosaic of masks I was referring to, and a mosaic with a similar concept from the reception hall of the villa in Metropolis you can see in this slide. Deities are also depicted as in this Medusa mosaic of Pergamon and mosaic of Dionysos, Ariadne, and Neanet mosaic from Metropolis. In addition, we see in the earlier versions, Latin can be used. For example, in this atrium mosaic from Metropolis, at the entrance, the visitor is greeted in Greek with agate tuke, good fortune in Greek, and at exit by bona fortuna, good fortune in Latin. Generally speaking, these figural depictions and 3D representations are more pronounced than the late antique examples. Next slide, please. How about the ecclesiastical structures? Ephesus, where Apostle Paul visited, Gospel of John is claimed to be written, and one of the 7 churches cited in the book of Revelation was located, is rich with churches paved with floor mosaics of geometric and vegetal patterns, as in this basilica at Magnesium Gate, St. John Church in Ayasluk, and St. Luke's grave. Next, please. And Church of Mary in Ephesus, where the Third Ecumenical Council took place, is also richly paved with mosaics of diverse motifs, again including the peacocks you see here. There is also Arvalia Basilica in Ephesus, which you will see in the next slide, in Ephesus hinterland, and a pilgrimage church in Pamucak with geometric mosaics. In contrast to them, Gülbahçe Basilica in Hippokremnos, part of Glazomenoi, depict 2 peacocks drinking from this crater, and in addition to geometric motifs. Next, please. Likewise, the late antique floor mosaics of other Asia cities, Tralles, Nisa, and Antandros, now in Aydın and Balıkesir, are predominantly geometric, with birds, wild animals, ivy scrolls, added now and then. The only inscription, that of good wishes, comes from Maritime Villa in Antandros that you see at the bottom right. And again, like Izmir, there are no human depictions in other Asia cities. Next slide, please. In order to contextualize Izmir mosaics with the wider Anatolia, let's go back to our charts and compare them with those of Anatolia. Compared to Anatolia as a whole, it seems to take a while for Izmir to recover after the end of Pax Romana, especially the Goth attacks in the region, and the major boom comes with the 5th century as stability returns. Next, please. In Anatolia too, mosaics are mostly paved in residential buildings, but mosaics also cover public spaces like baths, porticos, which Izmir lacks, as we mentioned before. Next, please. In terms of size, Izmir mosaics are also medium-sized like the Anatolian counterparts, covering 11 to 40 square meters. And next. And for Anatolian mosaics, 42% of the mosaics fail to specify the material used, versus just 14% in Izmir mosaics. Based on this reported data, however, the most obvious divergence stems in the use of terracotta and brick and ceramics in Izmir, which is quite rare for an average Anatolian mosaic. And next. And in terms of color, Izmir can be said to represent a usual Anatolian mosaic with polychromacy taking the lead. The only difference is there is no plain mosaic reported from Izmir versus very few examples from Anatolia. Next, please. As discussed, geometric and floral motifs take the lead in Izmir as in Anatolia in general. However, they are more dominant than in Anatolia in general. Inanimate objects like cantorals appear more often than Anatolia as well. However, figural depictions, as we have seen, are very rare, and personifications do not appear in any of the mosaics of Izmir, as opposed to 37 mosaics in Anatolia out of 378. And finally, as a conclusion, the last, as a conclusion, with many prominent Byzantine cities in its territory embellished with mosaics, Izmir provides an ample source to gain insight into the cultural, economic, and social life of its inhabitants, early Byzantines in this case. I hope the study opens up new pathways into the local and regional networks, trade and communication means, and movement of visual ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again for this very important presentation of this overview on mosaic production in the area of Izmir and the connections with nearer production centers. Also, thank you for keeping the time, and I would like to move to our next speakers, who are Mr. Dogan Çağlayan, and I apologize if I misspell something, and Werner Ziebt from the University of Istanbul, Turkey, and from the Österreichische Akademie der Wissenschaften. Their paper is on a preliminary report on Byzantine sigillographic evidence from Izmir. You can start sharing your screen. Thank you.
Bazema, can I tell you something? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, Bazema, sorry. Well, Doğukan is today in an excavation in Istanbul. He's excavating in St. Pelagos Church in Saraçhane, and it's a very rainy day, so he's having trouble with connection. And Professor Ziebt is in Vienna. I asked him, I don't know if he has read his mail or not. Am I allowed to read this very short paper on their own behalf? Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Is that okay for you? Yeah. I'll be keeping the time. It's going to be like 10-15 minutes, and please stop me if I go further. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. Right. So let me just start with the paper right now. Yes, as you perfectly announced, thank you very much for your introduction. I would like to concentrate on reading their paper about four seals from Izmir, from the Museum of Izmir, that Doğukan has worked with a permit in 2019. So it is going to be a preliminary report on Byzantine sigillographic evidence from Izmir by, as you say, Doğukan Çağlayan and Professor Werner Ziebt from Vienna. Okay, so let me just summarize the first part. Well, Doğukan has, as I said, worked in 2019 on the seals, on the lead seals from the Museum of Izmir, Archaeological Museum of Izmir. And he is now publishing it. But previously in 2014, from Paris, Jean-Claude Cheynet, he published 8 seals, lead seals from this museum in his La Place de Smyrne dans les thèmes de Trixien, in this volume in Athens by Kolias and Patsakis. That was the first time that a collection from Izmir has been published sigillographically by Cheynet and in general. This is a continuation of this publication of Cheynet by Doğukan and Professor Ziebt. Okay, so our previous knowledge about this collection, maybe I should also show you my text so that you will also see it. Can you now see my text, guy? Can you read my text? I think you can read my text.
Yes,
right now.
yes.
Perfect. So that you can also trace it from my text. Thank you very much. So I would like to tell some knowledge about Smyrna during the Byzantine period. As a port city of Smyrna, it was a large city during the Roman period. But after the 2nd century AD, after this huge earthquake in 2nd century AD, Smyrna became a smaller city, smaller than before. About the Byzantine history, we have very few information, we have very few evidence. And most of our evidences are actually coming from not archaeology, but scattered sources on historical queries, historical sources, especially Byzantine sources, but few Byzantine sources, some ecclesiastical sources, and lately archaeology, because in the last 15 years, there are several excavations done in Izmir. Results of some were published by Professor Ergün Laflı from Katip Çelebi University in Izmir. And there are also some results, few results, on the Byzantine heritage of Izmir at that time. So we are now more keen on the publication of these results on the Byzantine archaeology and history of Izmir, of Smyrna at that time. So the role of sigillography is very small up to now, and it's based on what Şeyne published in 2014. Except Şeyne, we know very few seals from Izmir. There is one publication from Agora of Smyrna, in a numismatic congress by Ergün Laflı and my colleague and also my neighbor from Manisa University, Ceren Ünal. And there is another publication by Zeynep Çakmakçı, 1 or 2 seals from a collection here in 9 Eylül, in our department's, in our faculty museum. And otherwise, we have no other, we don't have more publication from Izmir in terms of sigillography, in terms of lead seals. And it is also almost, there is also no evidence on Smyrnian lead seals in outside of world, except this paper by our Russian colleagues from Sevastopol, which is going to be the next paper after us, if they will be here. Okay, so I also would like to summarize about the situation of Izmir during the Byzantine period. Well, what we know is that in the beginning of 9th century, at 800s, Smyrna was an important harbor for transportation of vegetables to Greek island of Lesbos. We know it from sources, from some sources, and we know some seals like, for instance, Michael, a seal of which is attributed to Smyrna in 10th century, and we know an Johannes, we know a Leon Cubicularios from the second half of the 11th century. But as I said, these are scattered evidence, sigillographical evidence that Professor Zayt and Doğukan collected in their article. And also in the ecclesiastical history, there are several, indications of this, some indications about Smyrna. Yes, so now I would like to I would like to present their seals. First of all, I should say the Museum of Izmir is an old museum. It's one of the oldest museums in Turkey. It's one of the oldest 5 museums in Turkey. It has established already in the beginning of 1920s, but their collection, their sigillographic collection is very small, very controversially. We don't know why. And most of the seals came through accusations. They are not excavated. They're not excavated. They came through accusation, and they are important for Smyrna and for the Byzantine province Trapezion, which is very important because from those seals we can learn about dignitaries, Byzantine dignitaries in Trapezion. This is very important for us. And the collection of Izmir has pieces from Pergamon down to Didyma, and also the other part of Aegean. Even from some Greek islands, we have some pieces here. So it's still, it is a collection of a large region. So it's not only Smyrna, there are also other pieces in this collection. So let me start with the first piece. I would like to show you this picture first. This is our piece, number 1. Okay, so I would like to tell about that. This should be a Demetrios Komes, 21 millimeter in diameter. It's an accusation, and on the front side there is a crudely rendered cruciform invocate phonogram type Laurent, Vincent Laurent 5 without a tetragram, In the other side, in the reverse side, we have a cruciform monogram, including a name as well as an office or a title. We can clearly see an mu, then we have a smash letter, then again an omicron or above a broken alpha here, and then alpha, lambda, delta, or a combination of all these three letters. So for this name, we would like to propose committee or committee. Committee is in Greek form, committee is in Byzantine form. So the name is a little bit problematic. It should be perhaps Demetrio, would be the first solution. So first, reconstruction. But it could also be possible Macario. Macario, it would also be possible. That's why Shane, who published this seal as first, says cometa or comita as solution eventuelle. So he was not really very sure about that. So we would like to date it into 680 to 720, this piece, the first piece. The second piece is Antonios Dioketes. Now it's raining in Izmir. It's now raining in Izmir. Sorry about the sound. Sorry about this. Well, it's Antonios Dioketes. Again, published by Shane. I would like to show you the obverse and the reverse side. Antonios Dioketes. Well, it's again an accusation by Mr. Selahattin Devrim in the year 2000. Again, at the beginning, on the obverse, we have a cruciform invocative monogram here. You can clearly see it very well. And then in the back side, we have, again, another inscription. So let me just start with the obverse. Let's read it together. It's going to be Kyrie boetei to so do lo. Now we can at least see this part. You can see do lo here, do lo, and then you can also see Kyrie, more or less. Okay. So on the reverse side here, we can clearly see three lines of inscription. I guess the reading should be like this. Let's read together. You can see very clearly Antonio Dioketes. Antonio Dioketes. Antonio Dioketes. You can see here Dioketes here. At the end, an epsilon. An eta, sorry, at the end, an eta. Dioketes. It should be here. Dioketes. So some letters are illegible. I mean, the reverse part is easier than the first part. Some letters are illegible. In the first line, the central haze of the nu is lost in the reverse. At the end of the first line, there can be either an omega or an omicron. The first two letters of the second line are insecure. And we would like to date it into the late 8th century AD, which is also published by Shane, and he has given more or less the same date as we do. Okay, the third piece is by Johannes Dukas Kaisar. Here we have an obverse side and reverse side. Let me just tell you some words about it. First, okay, it's again an accusation in 1999. And on the obverse, we can clearly see bust of Theotokos Nikopoios here. We have Theotokos Nikopoios here with a bust, but not very, it's a little bit worn, holding a medallion with a bust of Christ before her breast here. Her breast, you can see, and then medallion, more or less. This is a very typical type of Theotokos Nikopoios. Nikopoios is a rare depiction of Theotokos. And it is definable with the medallion with the bust of Christ inside, and that she's holding it. This is a typical, scenario of Theotokos Nikopoios. And then we have circular invocative inscription, which is Theoteke boethei to so dulo, like the one above, Theoteke boethei to so dulo, which is very typical for this. And then in the reverse, we have a bust of an unidentified male. We don't know who it is, without nimbus. Similar like an imperial figure, it can be anybody. We checked that in Dumbarton Oaks catalog, and we couldn't find a combination of these two. We don't know who comes with Theotokos type in the century. So it's not clear who it is, you know, and the face is very worn. It is the bust of Johannes Dukas depicted as a Kaiser with a globus Krieger in his right hand. But the symbolic gesture of the left hand is not possible to determine, as it is perhaps hidden in the folds of the himation, which he seems be holding in front of him at waist level. Johannes is bearded and has moderately long curling hair that covers his ears. So let's come to the inscription here. The inscription is Johannito Euhestato Kaisari. So Johanne to Euhestato Kaisari, which is very clear. The person who is probably depicted and quoted here is sigillographically well known, and several seals presenting him as Kaiser are known in scholarly literature in sufficient numbers. So this is also a known combination, right? Who is Johannes Dukas? Johannes Dukas was the brother of Constantinos X Dukas, who became emperor on November 23, 1059 AD. Soon after, probably still in the year 1059, he elevated his brother to the high rank of Kaiser, permitting him much power. So this person is known through topographical sources, more or less. So this is definable. This piece has also been published by Şeyne, who also dated it in the mid 11th century, or post mid 11th century, something between 1060 to 1080. Okay, let's come to the last seal we have. It is a seal of monastery of the Theotokos Eleusa, which is an accusation again. In the obverse, we have a bust of Theotokos de Krautuza in the obverse, who is holding the child on her right arm and pointing to him with the left hand. This here we have sigla, but they are difficult to decipher. Yes. Probably the seal is slightly pressed at the right side, deleting the traces of the letters. The marked with modern numbers here. We have some modern numbers marked. I think the registration number or the inventory number, accession number of the museum. Jean-Claude Şeyne, who already published the seal, proposed convincingly at the right side Theotoko de Krutra Metal Theu Isus Christos, just like Vitania Laurent, on a parallel example in the Fogg Museum in the US. In the catalog of the seals in Dumbarton Oaks, the catalog editors proposed for this seal another type of reading. Then they revise it. So there are some discussion going on about the sigla here. In the reverse, though, we have a legend in 4 lines. How we should read it as suffragis, which means seal, tes, theotoku, tes, eleusis, which means the seal of monastery of Theotokos Eleusa. So this is an official seal of the monastery. Very important, actually. At the right side of a quarter of the seal is pressed, and then, as I said, the number has been written. The accusation number has been written. Some letters were damaged, but the most parallel example is created at Fogg Museum in the US. And there are 2 more close parallels. One is in Sammlung in Munich, and there is another one in Berlin. So Dumbarton Oaks, the parallels in Dumbarton Oaks has been dated to 12th century. Şeyne has also thought that's going to be the first half of the 12th century. Alexandra Kyriaki Vasiliou Zait from Thessaloniki and Vienna, she thinks this is later 11th, early 12th century. More or less we do agree with them, and it should be something between 1060 to 11th we put it in earlier phase, not in 12th, but in 11th century, late 11th century. So we know it that there was a very well-known church of Theotokos Elousa in the complex of Pantokrator Monastery in Constantinople, which is mentioned in Typikon of 1136. Professor Zayt and Doğukan would like to prefer to attribute this group of seals to a monastery, not a simple church. But we know very several monasteries at that time. Perhaps there's this also existing in the area of Western Asia Minor. We know it from Tabula Imperia Byzantini, but we do not want to make an exact parallel for this because we're not precisely sure about which monastery it should be assigned, right? We don't want to make any mistake with that, right? So this is a summarize of these 4 seals. Professor Zayt and Doğukan have 3 more seals, this 3-1, and they were not able to transcribe them properly. So if you guys have any idea, please let them know about that. Yes, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for reading the paper. And again, thank you for keeping this very short time, which helps us to get along. Shall I call the our next speakers? Are they here? Is Mr. Alexienko and Michael from the Russian Academy of Sciences here? I see Nikolai Alexienko.
Well, I do
I
also
see the icon, but I'm not sure.
Here, well, I
Mr. Alexienko.
Yes, here it is.
No, I see the icon. The icon is here. I see that they are here, but maybe they're not.
They're here for a long time. Maybe they're not in front of. They just participate from the beginning of the conference. Maybe they don't hear us. So let me just check.
What shall we do?
Would you like to perhaps skip until they
Yes,
realize?
we can skip. I would like to see if our next if Engin Akdenitz and Mr. Çeken and Mr. Laflı.
Yeah.
You are here, Mr. Laflı.
I'm here. I'm always here. I don't go anywhere. I don't go anywhere. I'm always here. I'm all the time here. No problems. So yes, let me just again start again.
Are you? Who is going to read the paper? Are you reading it?
Well, Professor Akdeniz is our dean of our faculty, faculty of letters here, and he's also the head of our department. So he's here. He's participating here, but he asked me to read it. And Professor Muhittin Çeken he's in Los Angeles in the U.S. And he's having a sort of a tour over there, an academic tour. So I would like to read it if it's possible for you, if it's okay for you, Bazema.
Sure, absolutely.
Sorry, maybe I read all the papers. I'm so sorry. This is being like Ergün Laflı conference. But I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm reading everything.
I mean, we're trying to find solutions. We're trying to find solutions, and you are very flexible to do all this work. I'm sorry for you that you're doing all the job.
Thank you very much, Bazema. That's very kind of you. So I'm trying to, if not everybody's bored of my voice or whatever, so please, that's going to be my last reading though. That's going to be my last reading. I won't read more. So good. I would like to present this paper on the behalf of my colleagues, my friends. Yes, let me just share the screen first. Okay, where are we? Yes, I found it. I found it. Good. I found it.
So perfect. Yes, we can see it.
Thank you very much, Professor President. Yes, the name of the paper is A Hoard of Coins of Frankish Greece from Thyatira in Western Turkey. Okay. Well, let me just read the paper. Well, Akhisar, this is not in Izmir. This is in the province of Manisa, which is here, right here. Is a country district and its town center in the province of Manisa and located approximately 50 kilometers northwest of Manisa in the Aegean part of Western Turkey. corresponding to the northwestern part of classical region of Lydia. So it was basically lying on the northwestern part of Lydia, close to its mountainous area. And it's today, I would say, more than 100 kilometers far away from Izmir. On the north eastern part of Izmir is Thyatira. Okay. Around 1111, Hassan, the Turkish emir of Cappadocia, sent a large army unit after failed siege of Philadelphia, Alaşehir, on a raid in the direction of Hilaria, Gördükkale by Akhisar and Thyatira. In the 12th century, a large-scale inflow of Turkish tribes started, and Thyatira swayed back and forth between Byzantine and Turkish rules for 2 centuries. In the Partitio Terrarum Imperii Romaniae, or Partitio Regni Graeci, a treaty signed among the Crusaders after the sack of Constantinople in 1204, Thyatira became part of the Provincia Adramiti de Ciliaris et de Pergamis, claimed by the Latin Empire, but de facto belonging to Thyatira, belonging to the Empire of Nicaea. The fact that the Emperor of Nicaea Vatatzes made Manisa the de facto capital of the empire and moved the treasury there made the region more economically valuable, which is located at a major highway junction that dominates the roads leading to Hellespont, Bithynia, Smyrna, Ephesus, and Turkish lands. In the 14th century, Turks under the Turkish Anatolian Beylik of Saruhan regained all Western Anatolian lands, and Thyatira came under Turkish rule in 1307. Akhisar maintained its importance as a regional trade center during the early Ottoman period. Towards the end of the same century, it became part of extending Ottoman Empire. Under Ottoman administration, Akhisar was at first a subdistrict, which we call Kaza in Turkish, in the Sancak district of Saruhan, corresponding to present-day Manisa province, within the large vilayet in Turkish province of Kütahya. So let me tell you all those places first, for those who don't know about Turkey. For instance, Thyatira is here. This is the place that I'm mentioning. Then we have, our Smyrna, then Sardis, then Ephesus, and Pergamon. So Thyatira, today's Akhisar, was lying just in the middle of this huge landscape where Pergamon, Ephesus, Smyrna, and Sardis were also located. So it was between these major Anatolian centers during the Hellenistic, Roman, and medieval Byzantine periods. Although Thyatira is very famous in Hellenistic Roman literature, scholarly literature, this paper is one of the first archaeological paper for the medieval period of Thyatira, for the Byzantine, late Byzantine, and post-Byzantine period of Thyatira. So the focus of the paper is the later periods of Thyatira. Okay. During the 13th to 16th centuries, Thyatira, Akhisar, was an important center of activity. It was on the ancient roads from Byzantium to Pergamon, Sardis, Magnesia, Atsipulum, today Manisa, Smyrna, and Ephesus. Thyatira was the center of many small towns and villages, which were administratively and politically bound to it. During the late medieval period, cloth and pottery production was the main activity in the town. Production of wool, linen, brass goods, and tanning were other commercial activities. The city remained a center of trade activity for centuries. In the early Ottoman period, Akhisar's cloth and rope were highly regarded in Istanbul markets. Among the other agricultural merchandise were olives, olive oil, watermelons, grapes, and raisins. Between the years 2008 and 2021, archaeological excavations were carried out under the directorship of Professor Engin Akdeniz, the Dean of the Faculty of Letters at Dokuzeli University, at the prehistoric Höyük site of Thyatira, Akhisar, which is located in the center of Akhisar and called as Hastane Höyük, which is literally hospital mount site. Why? Because on this mount or near this mount, there is a state hospital. So the excavators called the Höyük site as Hastane Höyük. A group of 124 coins were found together conjointly with 22 late medieval Turkish Islamic silver coins belonging to the Germanids, which we call Germanian oğulları Principality in Turkish, Germanian oğulları, and Sarukanids, which we call Saruhanoğulları Beyliği or Principality, on October 2017 in level F33 at Hastanehöyük. These coins, which should clean up to a gray color, were restored and conserved chemically by Miss Nazire Burçaklar and Miss Nüket Kalçuk, for whom we would like to thank again for their helps. Chemically, what was done was apparently enough to separate them, but not enough to bring out the designs clearly in every case. So we are sorry about the conditions, but they've done an amazing restoration of these coins. They have given all their power to these coins. They cleaned everything individually, which is amazing for us. So now we are working on this hoard, and I would like to report about it in this conference. Well, this is the actual find status of them when they first found in the Höyük. Of course, it was in a bag or something, in a perishable object. We believe it was maybe cloth or red leather, something like this. We are not sure, but it's perishable, so it's gone. All we found is just these coins in a stratigraphic level. That's it. We don't have another thing, but it's very important for us, and we would like to publish this as soon as possible. Good. These coins are made of an alloy of approximately 26 to 30% silver or less, it declined, and copper. This is why these are like so green, you know. This hoard was found in a sealed context, indicating that it was certainly deposited in 1307. The coins in question, which most probably belonged to a coin hoard, date to the period between the last quarter of the 13th century and the first quarter of the 14th century, and are so-called deniers tournois of the Crusader Principality of Achaia, which is controlled the Peloponnese in the late medieval period. So it's Greek. These coins, most of which are Bilin, bear mostly a cross pathy and the name of the prince on the obverse, and a châtel tournois, the cathedral facade, and indication of the mint on the reverse. I would like to show you one example. Here we have, as I said here, these are like this typical denier tournois, where we have a cross pathy. Here we can see clearly cross pathy, and then here this part cross pathy, and then we have the name of the prince on the obverse. Here we have most of the time a name of the prince on the obverse side, and on the châtel tournois here châtel tournois, and indication of the mint on the reverse, indication of the mint. So basically four things: cross pathy on the obverse with the name of the the king, and on the other side on the reverse, very simple châtel tournois, always there's no exception, and then the name of the mint. So this is a very basic scenario, but very useful for us, because even the very small indications give us lots of information about who comes from where to where and for which purpose, when and how. So this is important for us. So this is a very important word to explain that, right? Good. Okay, let me just tell you some more words about that. This design scheme is inspired by contemporary French coins. So they had got it from the French coins. They copied the style, right? Although most of the coins have been heavily damaged, the letters tia on the reverse indicate that the coins were from the Clarentia, that is, they were minted in the city of Clarentia in the present-day southwestern Greece. Clarentia is it? Clarentia in Greek, Clarentia. Such coin hoards, which usually contain a mix of coins of Athens and Achaia, are known in medieval literature in the Eastern Mediterranean. So they are known, but it's important for us to find them in hoards to explain more about it, right? During this period, Akhisar did not have a direct direct commercial connection with the Peloponnese, where coins were minted. These coins may be more related to Roger de Flore's troops. Roger de Flore was a condottiere who had been active in Sicily and Byzantine Empire in the years 1304 and 1305, including Western Anatolia in places such as Kyzikos, Germe, Thyatira, Anaya, and Philadelphia. After Andronikos Palaiologos asked to Roger de Flore for help against the Ottoman advance, he also came with the troops to Lydia and fought against the Ottomans here. These military units used these coins and even suppressed their imitations. In fact, these coins were also used in military payments, just as the payments to the troops participating in the First Crusade were made with silver Lucadiniers tournois. The soldiers of Roger de Flore's Catalan division, who achieved minor success, carried out some looting and plundering activities in Istanbul. And sorry. Sorry about that. I do. Maybe I should mute somebody.
15 buçuğa düşmüş. Abi kadar bayağı ya. Lütfen geri çıkalım.
I found it now. Oh, sorry about this. Sorry about it. I needed to mute somebody. Okay. Right. So sorry about this for the interruption. So I would like to repeat it once again. The soldiers of Roger de Flore's Catalan division, who achieved minor success, carried out some looting and plundering activities in Istanbul and other Byzantine cities. Thereupon, Andronikos II had Roger de Flore killed, and the Catalan soldiers who could not get their money were left without leader fled to Europe after pillaging and plundering the Byzantine lands in eastern Thrace. During the late medieval period, Thyatira was located on the north-south route of early stages of the Crusader expansion in Western Anatolia. While the Crusaders were descending from the north, they passed through Gurdes, today Byzantine Yulia-Gordos, to the interior places by a short intermediate road over Thyatira. Local imitations of these coins belonging to Crusaders were minted in this area. These coins may also be used in slave markets in Thyatira during this particular period. Most likely, the Akhisar hoard can be dated fairly closely, and if can be determined that it was deposited by 1307, it might help resolve some dating questions for the future. Good. All right. Now, I would like to show you some more examples of that. This is a typical one of Bignon from Alia in Aiolis. In the Archaeology of Izmir, a very typical, very similar one. So I would like to say these coins, these particular coins, are almost the same together. So it is very difficult to differentiate them if the names are not clear enough. So you need more talent to differentiate them if the letters are not legible, and you need to really concentrate on each coin, because the decoration doesn't change, but the names are the one which are changing, right? So you can get the evidence only from the names, and if you get a nice catalog of names of the kings, then you have a very nice evidence, numismatic evidence of them. So this is a very, very similar example to the ones that were found in Akhisar, but it's from Alia, which is far away from Akhisar. So I would like to show you some more example of them. As you see, they are perfectly cleaned, but you know that they have this corrosion a little bit. So some of them are really illegible. Some of them, well, I counted 17 or 18 of them are legible. The rest are not very legible, but we are trying to do our best. Because this is a very interesting, very, very important word for us. As the last, I would like to show you two Islamic coins, late medieval Islamic coins, Saruhan Beylik here, very well preserved. Well, we are always lucky with silver. Silver is always better protected than bronze, of course. And these coins are lovely. I would like to show you two pieces. I found some parallels of them in the Museum of Manisa that we are going to publish with in the same article. So this is our report about this hoard. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it was perfect and very interesting material. I see every time new surprises and new elements coming from the excavations. Now, what shall we do? Shall we try to go again to see if our colleagues Alexienko and Maiko are ready?
This will be great. Maybe I should write them a chat. In the chat, I should write them, say hello.
Yes. Otherwise, we can go ahead with Robert Leonard. Is Robert Leonard with us?
Yes, he's in my room. He's in Turkey in my room.
Okay, he's in Turkey in your room.
Yes,
Okay.
he's in Turkey. He's in Turkey in my room. So I'll give him my my place so that he will start.
Okay, thank you. So we
I would
go
like
with
to arrange. Yes, I would like to first arrange the thing. Sorry, the PowerPoint, because we have his PowerPoint. He has an amazing presentation. He prepared an amazing preparation.
yes.
For this, so let me just show. Good. So let me just find his PowerPoint, Leonard here. So here we go. And sorry about that. It is, and it's heavily raining here. I'm so sorry. It's heavily raining, and I'm sorry for the sound. It started all just right now. I'm sorry for the
It's
sound.
okay.
It's heavily
Just-
raining in Turkey. I'm sorry about that. So, Robert,
Well,
would
what
like
can
to-
you do? It's, yeah, I mean, you don't choose the weather. We have to get along with it. So welcome to Robert Leonard.
All right, now I want to go
Yeah,
to slideshow.
Yeah, well, should I do it? Well, sorry.
You know how to do fine slideshow? here?
Well, yeah, that's true. At the same time, it's not really working very good. So I would like to propose to, first of all, to make sure if the slides are really, sorry.
I think they're,
Yes, that's right. Well,
I think we already checked the slides yesterday.
that's right. That's right. Because
This is somebody else.
yeah, that's true. I'm trying to, sorry, just first find our colleagues, because we're having difficulties with technical probably lots of technical problems. So in this case, I would like to ask you to start so that and then because
I will be glad to start, but first let me get my slides on.
yes, but you can sit here. Yeah,
I'm sitting here,
Yeah, no, you
but
can
I
sit.
would like to
Yeah.
get this as slideshow, which I think maybe this.
But if you would like to show like this here, it's a slideshow here.
Oh,
Look,
this is,
yeah,
well, wait a
Yeah.
minute, let's see what happened there. Did I get rid of it?
yeah.
What did I do
Should I
here?
now help you? So that,
All right,
sorry.
let's get it back. If that slideshow, all right, I couldn't. All right, here we go. That's it. We got it. That was it. That was it. All right,
Perfect.
now I need to get backwards. All right,
Thank you very
got
much.
it.
Oh, thank you very much. And here your Robert Leonard's paper is on who issued the K-class imitation Venetian ducats. And the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. During the 14th century, the Venetian ducat became one of the standard gold coins of the Mediterranean, admired for its reliable purity and consistent weight. Minting exploded during the reign of Doge Andrea Dandolo. Several rulers issued imitations of lower fineness, which Venice diligently suppressed. But there is another class of low-grade imitations of uncertain origin. These imitations have been termed K-class because they have the mint mark of a K, normally backwards with respect to the rest of the legend, just to the left of the mandorla on the reverse. And the R of ANDR, the obverse, is usually shown as a K also. Another feature that distinguishes the K-class ducats from other imitations is the presence of extra pellets between some letters of the inscription, chiefly on the reverse, but sometimes on the obverse also, which are not present on the prototype. They are found exclusively on early pure gold examples. London coin dealer Simon Bendel studied 133 pieces of this type, the major part of a hoard, which he published in 1979 with Cecily Morrison. They recorded many such combinations of pellets between letters. Here's an excerpt from their paper showing their group B. But the most unusual aspect of this class of imitations is its debasement in stages from nearly pure gold to silver over the course of its issue. This is unique among ducat imitations and rarely seen in any coinage. A number of examples have been tested over the years. Many more could be checked, but these show the entire range. Graphically, this shows a steady decline in fineness, followed by collapse. With one exception, a coin probably lost by a pilgrim, all finds of K-class ducats have come from the Eastern Mediterranean. Unfortunately, no archaeological recoveries are known, so we must rely on the reports of early coin collectors and coin dealers. Numismatist Paul Lambros reported acquiring 6 of these in Corfu in 1856 and later another 7 in Smyrna and Constantinople. Archaeologist and coin collector F.W. Hasluck obtained 6 pieces of this type in Constantinople in 1912 and a further one in Konya the same year. He also saw 45 more to hoard at Constantinople. But finds from Constantinople are not particularly helpful for determining the issuer because it was the main emporium of the Ottoman Empire. More recently, in the introduction to the 1979 Bendel and Morrison study of a hoard of these pieces, Bendel stated that, based on his experience as a coin dealer, it is certain that this type of imitation is absolutely never found in continental Greece or in the islands, nor even in Chios, but always comes from the Turkish market. Finally, an isolated K-class ducat was discovered, quote, about 10 miles from Jerusalem, near to a very old house, reputedly an old market in 2010. At this time, Jerusalem was part of the Mamluk Empire, and Venetian ducats are known to have circulated there as early as 1399. A different type of clue to the origin of K-class ducats comes from the banker's marks found on some examples. Because this series was known to be of uncertain fineness, in the second quarter of the 15th century, money changers and bankers in at least one market where they circulated came to test doubtful ducats that crossed their benches by striking it with a small, round, square, or diamond-shaped rod to determine whether they were of uniform gold content. By comparing these marks to those on other ducats of known or presumed origin, we can surmise the location of the markets where K-class ducats chiefly circulated. This K-class ducat has 2 banker's marks on the obverse and a faint one on the reverse. Another example has a single circular mark on the reverse, and another with a circular banker's mark plus a diamond banker's mark on the obverse and a diamond mark on the reverse. Yet another with a circular banker's mark on the obverse only. A final example with just a circular banker's mark on the reverse. This ducat, an imitation of a Venetian ducat of Antonio Venier, 1382 to 1400, is attributed to the Genoese rulers of Chios, though perhaps issued elsewhere. It has a round banker's mark on each side. A second example of this type is a sharp diamond-shaped banker's mark on the reverse only. While these imitations are merely attributed to Chios, ducats clearly naming the issuing authority were struck there, including issues for Filippo Maria Vicani, 1421 to 1436. They substitute S. Petrus for S.M. Veneti and D. Mediolani for the name of the Venetian Doge. Filippo Maria Vicani was identified here by his title, Duke of Milan. Though less fine than those of Venice, these ducats were of good quality. Consequently, they were imitated locally in poor quality gold. And these imitations are also known with banker's marks. Obtained from different sources, these two obverse die duplicates with reversed S and Cyrillic style M have obverse banker's marks, one a circle and the other a pointed square. Another imitation of this type from different dies has a faint banker's mark on the obverse. Though not genuine issues of Chios, they are likely to have been made either there or nearby. The nearby city of Foglia Vecchia was ruled by Dorino Galuzio, who minted ducats there circa 1423 to 1449. A virtually uncirculated example of this rare issue is known with a square banker's mark on the obverse. Lastly, a probable Turkish ducat imitation, most likely from the Chios hoard of circa 1435 to 1437, is known with a circular banker's mark on the obverse. From the known and presumed locations of these other ducats, we can see that the market where K-class ducats were tested must have been in this general area near Smyrna. A final indication of their origin is the holdings of the Museum of Izmir, ancient Smyrna. Here I must thank Dr. Laflı for providing clear color images of these coins so that they could be attributed. The Izmir Museum holds 4 coins attributed to Andrea Dandolo. Of these, 3 are K-class imitations, and a 4th is a genuine Venetian ducat. The K-class imitations are presumably from a small local hoard. Unfortunately, this cannot be confirmed because they were purchased years ago in a group of many different coins from the Archaic to the Ottoman periods. Consequently, by combining all these indications, we can, with high confidence, conclude that the K-class ducats originated in an area of Western Anatolia centered on Smyrna. But answering the question posed by the title of this paper, who issued them, is far more difficult. Many attributions have been proposed over the last century and a half, from Paul Lambros in 1876 through my own last year. Scholars have been unable to decide between Turkish principalities and Christian outposts. As previously mentioned, in 1979, Bendel and Morrison published 133 ducats of this type. They dated them circa 1345 to 1360 and attributed them to a Turkish principality in Asia Minor, such as the Ottomans, Germian, Saruhan, Aydin, Mentesi, Hamid, or Karaman. Morrison went further and preferred to draw attention to Venetian documents which allude to counterfeits of ducats struck at Theologos, which is Saruhan, Aydin, ancient Ephesus. Until about 1360, this city belonged to Kaider Bey, who was, quote, inclined to seek mercantile profits. Theologos had an active trade with the West per the testimony of the Florentine merchant Francesco Pagalotti. His coin list dates to circa 1290, with possible additions to 1340, who dedicated a chapter to this city. Kaider may also have sought to increase his profits from minting imitation ducats of deficient fineness. In an additional note to this paper, Elizabeth Zachariadou observed that it is likely that they were made in Theologos between 1344 and 1353, when relations between Venice and Cairo were ruptured, depriving Theologos of a supply of genuine ducats. The following year, Giuseppe Lunardi attributed them to Chios under the Meona between 1347 and 1373, but secretly, as an action of economic reprisal against Genoa's rival Venice. Philip Grierson considered the subject in 1988 in a paper on the fineness of the Venetian ducat and its imitations. Addressing the K-class imitations, he remarked that a Turkish origin was unlikely, quote, for Ducati Turci are consistently referred to as 22 or 23 carats fine, a figure well above that of many of the Dandolo imitations. Perhaps most likely hypothesis is that they are the imitations about which the Venetian government complained to Genoa in 1355, and which the Genoese Senate ordered Francesco I Galluzio, Lord of Mytilene, to desist from minting in 1357. The dates fit very well. Alan M. Stahl, in a 2018 paper proposing to identify the ducats struck by the emirs of Aden, rejected the K-class ducats on the ground that, one, their fineness was lower than the known fineness of Aden imitations, and two, unlike Aden ducats, which required study and practice to detect, they are actually marked as imitations. Also in 2018, Andreas D. Mazarakis published an exhaustive study of Venetian ducats and their imitations from the 14th through the 16th centuries. He considered the K-class ducats to be Turkish and assigned them to the Beyliks emirs of Saruhan, Aydin, or Menteşe, 1348 to 1388 to 1390, before the Ottoman takeover of those places. Last year, I suggested they might have been issued by the Knights Hospitaller at Smyrna, but Alan Stahl raised objections, and I have not submitted this proposal for publication. In view of all these contradictions, a fresh approach is required based on knowledge of the area where K-class ducats originated. One, they are not counterfeits, since each one is plainly differentiated from the originals by being marked with the letter K. Two, issues of pure gold include one or more small extra pellets, also not found on original Venetian ducats. They form a pattern that is not understood. While these could be simply die number indicators, they might also represent serial numbers for a proposed redemption order. Three, the inscriptions are in Latin letters, as opposed to imitations of Latin letters or Greek letters. However, the letter K is common in Greek, but rare in Latin. Four, the date of issue is uncertain. While the prototype was minted in the 14th century, 1343 to 1354, the banker's marks found in them are also found in coins certainly minted in the 15th century, circa 1430 to 1450. However, the 15th century coins are mostly in fresh condition, while some K-class ducats with banker's marks are circulated. Also, gold ducats remained in circulation for long periods in the late Middle Ages. For example, 13 genuine ducats of Andrea Dandolo were found in a Romanian hoard of circa 1425 and another one in the Ephesus hoard of circa 1450. In any case, the earliest known appearance of K-class ducats seems to be in the Chios hoard, circa 1435 to 1437. The K-class ducats have no standard fineness. There is a long decline to a low standard and finally pure silver. In this connection, in his 1988 paper on the fineness of the Venetian ducat and its imitations, Philip Grierson remarked, quote, "The sharp decline in fineness of these ducats points to an attempt to stretch a limited supply of bullion as it began to run out. 6, these are characteristics of a special military coinage, with the issuer becoming increasingly desperate. The use of overvalued money for military purposes has a long history. A famous example from antiquity is the bronze tetradrachms of Athens, issued for military pay in the final months of the Peloponnesian War, circa 405 BC. Consequently, we should look primarily for a minting authority that is an area centered on Smyrna and a military unit. Some possibilities include Kaider Bey, Beylik of Aydin and Lord of Theologos, the 1360. Perhaps the K represents the Ka of his name. B, Crusaders of the Latin Union, 1344 to 1347, or the Knights Hospitaller at Smyrna, 1344 to 1402, at the Lower Castle. However, no person whose name begins with a letter K has been discovered among the Grand Masters, leaders of the Crusade, or Hospitaller leaders at Smyrna. If so, K must represent some minor official. During the period 1344 to 1402, name ducats were struck for two Grand Masters at Rhodes, Diadon de Gozan, 1346 to 1353, and Pierre de Cornellon, 1354 to 1355. Thus, the Hospitallers could possibly have been furnished with these ducats instead of minting K-class imitations. But these name ducats are very rare and probably issued in small numbers for use on roads. Far more would have been needed for the crusade. No K-class ducats have been excavated or found on roads. C, Beyliks of Aydin at Smyrna, perhaps minted at the upper castle, Kadifakale, using K as a mint mark. It would appear that the K-class ducats were never redeemed, accounting for their commonness today. Two of the 6 examples in the author's collection were made in jewelry, another sign of the owner losing any hope of exchange. They may have been shunned by merchants and excluded from merchant manuals of the period. They do not seem to have been noticed by any merchant manual written up to circa 1420, or maybe as late as 1432. So if these are truly comprehensive, then K-class ducats must have been introduced between circa 1420 and circa 1435-37, the earliest hoard currently known. These coins of uncertain quality were probably known by some disparaging name, such as pales, feebles, whites, or even an obscenity. But perhaps there is a mention somewhere that can be recognized as referring to them. Help is needed from archaeology to attribute these coins. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Leonard, for this presentation. I'm sure there will be discussion here as well. And may I ask my colleague if there are any informations about our 2 Russian speakers?
Yes. I also wonder if our Russian colleagues have heard us. Actually, I was wondering, can you guys hear us? Maybe they left the computer open, and that's the reason. Maybe I hope that they will get back. But we have our speaker from Czech Republic.
No, I know we have. But before we move to the last speaker, I wanted to check.
Yes, me too. I'm so keen on this very interesting lecture. But
no problem. We will move forward in order to save time. And I would like to invite our colleague from the Czech Republic, from Brno, Erikos Maniotis, for his paper.
yes. Now I'm trying to arrange his PowerPoint here so that we will set it down. Well, Enrico is just 2 meters far from me. Let me just close this one here, and then I'm closing that one. Okay, that's it. So let me just start his screen share. There we go. Yeah, there you go. And
Yes.
yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
So we have our paper on the Mongol siege warfare in Anatolia the siege of ancient Smyrna in 1402. Please, Erikos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President. Smyrna, in Greek Smyrni, now Izmir, was settled at the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC. Throughout antiquity, it was the early leading city-state of Greek Ionia on the Aegean shores and islands of Asia Minor. Smyrna was among the cities that claimed Homer as a resident. Izmir, nowadays the 3rd most populated city and bustling economic center in modern Turkey, is situated in one of the Mediterranean's most exciting crossroads of cultures, littered with remains of ancient sites and monuments of different periods. Smyrna's position in the mouth of the small river Hernus, at the head of the deep arm of Smyrna's positions and the mouth of the small river Hernus at the head of a deep arm of the sea that reached far inland and admitted Greek trading ships into the heart of Lydia, placed it on an essential trade route between Anatolia and the Aegean, and raised Smyrna during the 7th century BC to power and splendor. One of the great trade routes with cross Anatolia descends the Hernus Valley past Sardis, and then diverging from the valley passes south of Mount Sipylus and crosses a low pass into the little valley where Smyrna lies between the mountains and the sea. Miletus and later Ephesus, situated at the sea of the sea end of other great trade routes across Anatolia. Smyrna is sat in the west by the hill now called Diarmentepe, with the ruins of a temple on the summit. The walls of Lysimachus cross the summit of this hill, and the Acropolis occupied the top of Pagus. Between the two, the road from Ephesus entered the city by the Ephesian gate, near which was a gymnasium. Closer to the Acropolis, the outline of the stadium is still visible, and the theater was situated on the north slopes of Pagus. Smyrna possessed two harbors, the outer, which was simply the open roadstead of the Gulf, and the inner, which was a small basin with a narrow entrance partially filled up by Timur in 1402. Alexander the Great, after fighting the Persians, had re-established Smyrna on the foot of Pagus Hill, Kadifi Kale, meaning velvet castle. New Smyrna was built at a distance of 20 stadia to the south of Old Smyrna. According to Strabo, the streets of New Smyrna were well paved with stone, and the city contained several squares, porticos, fountains, a public library, and numerous temples and other public buildings. The Agora was founded at the end of the 4th century BC, immediately following the reign of Alexander the Great. It served as Smyrna's administrative, political, and judicial center, as well as main hub of commerce and trade. A temple dedicated to Zeus Acreos stood on the slopes of Mountain Pagos. Smyrna also possessed a harbor where the temple of the Mother Goddess and the gymnasium also stood. After the establishment of the Roman province of Asia in 133 BC, Smyrna was rewarded with various grants and privileges, having sided with the Romans against the war with Mithridates. In 26 AD, Tiberius granted Smyrna the privilege of building a local temple to the emperor, first Neocoria. In the Roman period, Smyrna vied with Ephesus and Pergamum for the first city of Asia. The city became twice Neocoros under Hadrian, whose benefactions of Smyrna exceeded all expectations. Hadrian's benefactions are also attested by an inscription which lists the emperor's gifts, including 1,500,000 drachmae, 98 columns to adorn the gymnasium, immunity from taxes, as well as the establishment of sacred constants, Hadriani Olympia, with theologians, theologi, and hymn singers, hymnodi. The sacred games were held in the Stadium of Smyrna, where two altars dedicated to the Hadrian Olympians have been discovered. In the year 178, a major earthquake hit Smyrna, destroying most of the city. Reconstruction work started shortly after the event with the help of Marcus Aurelius. This is confirmed by a portrait of his wife, Faustina the Younger, still visible over the arch of the west colonnade of the Agora. To Christians, Smyrna was one of the 7 churches of Asia. A Christian community was established there at the very early time, and Bishop Polycarp was among the early Christians who suffered martyrdom in Smyrna at the time of Marcus Aurelius. After the Roman Empire was divided into 2 distinct entities, Smyrna became the territory of the Eastern Roman Empire. The bishops of Smyrna were originally subject to the Metropolitan of Ephesus. Afterwards, they became independent. In late antique history is obscure, with only few epigrams providing evidence for construction or maintenance of public works. The city walls were restored by Arcadius and Heraclius. Moavia devastated the city in 654, and the Arabs occupied it in 672-73. Smyrna was a major naval base that gained importance as the harbor of Ephesus silted up. According to Constantine VII, Smyrna was a city of the Thracian theme and at the same time the capital of theme of Samos. The city also had an archon, apparently a maritime governor. In the Middle Byzantine period, the region suffered from the Arab invasions. During the 13th century, the western coastland of Asia Minor underwent not only substantial environmental change, but also profound political, cultural, and religious transformations. The city was several times ravaged by Turks and had become quite ruinous, with Emperor John Dukas Vatatzis about 1222 rebuilt it. But Ibn Battuta found it still in great part a ruin when the famous chieftain Aydin had conquered it about 1330 and made his son Amur governor. It became the port of the Aydin Emirate. In the 1345, Pope Clement VI ordered the Second Mizmiriote Crusade, and from the 1374, the Knights of Hospitality of Rhodes of the St. John Order held the fortified harbor till the arrival of the Mongols and the capture of the city, which is our main theme in our presentation. Before we proceed to the events of the siege, we can mention some little events about the fortification of the city, some little facts. The settlement itself consisted of this dispersed habitation nuclei, around which was flanked a large wall, perhaps as early as the late 9th century. Some believe this earliest wall, at least, was actually a retaining wall. It is a circuit wall which enclosed the earliest in the Greek world. Later building phases have been dated to the middle of the 8th and the late 7th century BC. In each phase, the wall possessed a single tower. The temple to Athena, built in the 7th century, was located on a large platform that was part of the circuit wall and placed close to the northeast gate and associated tower. The walls themselves consisted of tall stone sockles stapled with mud brick. Despite its impressive fortifications, Smyrna was captured by the Lydians around 600 BC. The fortifications surrounding Cadiz Calais were built in the 7th and early 3rd centuries and were used by the Romans. The Byzantines demolished sections of it later. As it has been already mentioned, the city walls had been restored at different periods, such as from the reign of Arcadius and Heraclius. Emperor Michael III built a fortified wall around the city in the 9th century by the threat of the Arab invasions. Taking advantage of the decline of Ephesus and Smyrna, with a rich hinterland suitable for agriculture, benefited from the economic and spatial development of the Byzantine Empire from the 10th century and onwards. An arsenal was established there, which served as a naval base to Jakas, a Turkish emir who temporarily occupied the city. The configuration of defenses at Smyrna recalls a phenomenon often defined by the phrase "from polis to castron," which envisages the negative transformation of a classical city to a reduced fortified core. However, it can be argued that this simple binary distinction is not helpful in defining and exploring the diversity of physical, demographic, and societal changes to urban and non-urban settlements between the early and later Byzantine periods. Analysis of 9th to 11th century texts has shown that some writers, such as Theophanes, use castron to define an urban center, whereas other contemporary accounts, such as the Patriarch Nikephoros, using similar sources, prefer polis to describe the same place, a literary choice rather than a meaningful distinction of role or definition. Terminology can be important not only to understand how fortifications were described in Byzantine sources, but also the appropriate terms in archaeological and historical studies. Until recently, fortified sites in Anatolia, which are called in Turkish kale, were frequently termed Byzantine castles. In Western Europe, this term is specifically associated with the fortified residence of feudal lordsland to apply castle. In the Byzantine world before the 11th century can be anachronistic and misleading since it presumes a function and role that is essentially alien. The challenge for archaeologists and historians is to be able to integrate and understand the changing role of the fortified place known from across the mountains and plateau of Anatolia, evident from the both written sources and physical remains. One of the key problems is attempting to establish a date for the initial construction and for later works, since occupation often extends into the Seljuk and later periods. Further issues concern what role they may have played locally, regionally, or a part of a wide imperial system of security and administration. There have been few detailed studies of Byzantine fortifications, and only limited regional studies have been published. In the 13th century, the walls were repaired and new towers were added. The next big change is that the fortification of Smyrna happened in the 14th century. The construction of St. Peter's Castle is related to the occupation of Smyrna by the Christian fleet of the Lombard Jean de Brianda. It actually belonged to the Pope himself until the 1345, when it was ceded to the Hospitallers and the Grand Master de Zuliac by the Pope Gregory VI. In 1392, it was repaired by Domenico de Alemania, and again probably after the 1398 earthquake by Grand Master de Nailac. The occupation of Smyrna by Tamerlane meant a great destruction of the city, and the Hospitallers rushed and built the Halikarnassos Bodrum nowadays castle farther south. It is commonly believed that Tamerlane razed the St. Peter's Castle to the ground, but a number of travelers describe a castle on the same location. Evliya Çelebi mentions that only vineyards and gardens are left in the castle. The inn, bathhouse, bazaar, and mosque have all fallen in disrepair. About 30 Janissaries and their families dwell here in cladded house. Malatri regards this castle a Latin construction, with the exception of the loopholes. The castle's ground plan was triangular, with each side measuring approximately 100 meters, with walls 8 meters high and an inner castle and the corner controlling the port. This seems to be the purpose of building a second castle at Smyrna, after the one on Pagos Hill. The castle has been illustrated by the travelers Lebrun, Tournefort, Lebeau de Flandin. After the construction of Sagnac-Calais around 1650, it was abandoned, but it was only demolished in 1852-72, since Turkish houses had already been inside. It existed at the location of the Hisar Mosque and Vezir Khan. Regardless of its demolition, it is mentioned of British Admiralty maps as late as 1908. Now we'll proceed to the siege events themselves. As we have already mentioned, in 3045, Pope Clement VI orders the Second Mizmirniote Crusade under the command of Humbert II of Vienna, since the First Crusade has failed haphazardly to capture the city of Smyrna from the Seljuk Turks. The main sources for the siege are the Persian historians Saraf al-Din Ali Yazdi and the Mirquand, and the Arab Ahmad ibn Arabs, who wrote in the service of Timur's successors. For the Knights of Rhodes, the official history of Giacomo Bosio, written early the 17th century, is an important source. From the Ottoman perspective, there is Nesri and Kunu al-Abar of Mustafa Ali. For the Byzantines, there are Dukas and Laonikos Chalkokondyles. For the Genoese, Agostino Giustiniani. Eventually, the Crusaders achieved to control only the sea castle and the harbor, but failed to conquer the citadel. From the 1374, the Knights Hospitaller of Rhodes of the St. John Order held the fortified harbor. An awkward situation developed, not unlike Cold War Berlin. The Crusading Hospitallers controlled the harbor and the sea castle. Turkish soldiers occupied the land castle and the rest of Smyrna. The situation in Smyrna remained this way for over 50 years. Meanwhile, the Central Asian warlord Timur envisioned himself as the second coming of Jekin Khan. As he did everything he could prove to his point, he stormed west with his forces from Uzbekistan to Anatolia. The road to Smyrna was now open. The Timurids simply aimed to drive out both the Hospitallers and the Turks. Control of Smyrna was the primary objective here. and so the Knights Hospitaller got sucked into the Seljuk-Timurid conflict. By the year 1402, after the defeat of the Ottomans in the Battle of Ankara, Tamerlan led his Mongol army against the coastal region of Asia Minor and Smyrna, and the defensive preparations immediately began, overseen by the Admiral Bafilo Panitsiati. The garrison of Smyrna consisted of 200 well-trained Hospitaller knights. To stimulate them to give it all they have, all the commander increased their pay to the homogeneous sum of 100 florins per year. The Hospitallers also dug a deep ditch around their castle to prevent the enemy from rolling up siege materials to the walls. They also inundated the immediate surroundings, leaving only a small strip of land for entry and exit. The creation of this isthmus made it even easier to defend their fort. Meanwhile, a stream of munitions, supplies, and reinforcements poured into the port of Smyrna. The mood of the garrison grew confident. Even Timurid historians thought that the stronghold impregnable. Still, the Hospitaller Grand Master sent an envoy to Timur. During negotiations, Timur declared that he would spare Smyrna if the Knights Hospitallers converted to Islam, but the envoy declined the offer. Then on December 2nd, 1402, Timur arrived in front of Smyrna at the head of his army. He immediately ordered stone-throwing machines to be constructed and set them to work. The Hospitallers dug in for a long and terrifying bombardment. The tactics, both offensive and defensive, urges us to refer to the Mongol siege methods, but also the defensive mechanisms that had been applied by the defenders. The Mongol siege methods consisted of a paralyzed bombardment conducted day and night as they filled up modes and weeks of sack of earth. Then the Mongols brought their numbers to bear and overrunning the walls. These tactics worked quite well against cities and castles situated on a flat plain and defended by ramparts of earth and wood. The Mongols admittedly showed unprecedented adaptation and improved in siege warfare compared to the other nomadic tribes. Already in 1221, a Song envoy reports the usage of Chinese siege technology such as rams, catapults, and siege towers, but the Mongol Empire gradually adopted Islamic trebuchets and evolved in siege tactics. Back to the siege events, while Timur's trebuchets raced against the Smyrna walls, he had the ditch infilled with the Hospitallers had dug. This allowed his army to get rams and such underneath the walls. His ships also dumped huge amounts of stone in the harbor's entrance, blockading the castle from all the sides. Similar blockading methods had been used approximately a century and a half earlier in the siege of Sidon by the Mongol general Ketboga in 1260. The incident that led to the city to be sieged in the death of the nephew of Ketboga by Julian de Grenier, Lord of Sidon and Botho, in an ambush near the Sea of Beka. Sidon, but also the castle of Tartus, Tortosa in Syria and Smyrna, had a sea castle, which was cut off from the main city in the case of a siege. Sidon's sea castle, a compact fort composed of two incorrected towers, which was seated on the small island 40 meters off the coast. These two sea castles will be their parallels. The name of the town Tartus, Tortosa, derives from Anti-Arados, opposite Arados, the Greek name of a small islet which stands opposite the town. So Arados preceded in history Tortosa and retains some memories of its ancient past when it was a Phoenician principality which controlled what today is the coastal strip of Syria. Tortosa and the islet acquired great importance during the Crusades and were the last strongholds to fall in the hands of Mamelukes. Tortosa was conquered by Raymond Sanzil in 1099 and became a fiefdom of the country of Tripoli, a Crusader state established immediately after the First Crusade. It was located near the Gate of Homs, a large bridge in the mountain ranges behind the coastal strip, which allowed access to the Valley of Orontes River and the important towns such as Homs, ancient Emesa, and Hama. For this reason, Tortosa was not only a landing point for the pilgrims to the Holy Land, but also a port call for Genoese and Venetian ships. In 1152, Nur al-Din, Atabek, governor of Aleppo, conquered Tortosa, and a few years later also nearby Sateh Blanc. After the Counts of Tripoli had regained control of Tortosa, the town was assigned to the Knights Templars, who in a few years built a citadel near the harbor and fortified the whole town with walls. In the citadel, they built a large hall for the meetings and ceremonies. Today it can still be detected, notwithstanding the main later buildings which have been nested inside it. The Templars constructed new defenses at the city. These were dominated by the vast rectangular keep, which stood in the northwest corner of the site. It was flanked by two corner towers situated at the water's edge. The land approaches to the structure was guarded by two successive ditches and curtain walls, equipped with several further flanking towers and shooting galleries. Beyond these defenses, the actual town and cathedral of Tortosa were protected by another rampart, which was not as powerful as those of the citadel, but could still halt minor incursions by various raiders. As we have seen, the Templars re-established Latin control over the former site by constructing a powerful new citadel, and a similar process subsequently also took place at Sidon. In 1188, Saladin, the conqueror of Jerusalem, managed to conquer Tortosa, but was unable to seize the citadel, and he eventually left the town. Likewise, despite a Mongol raid in 1260, Sidon's defenses remained under Latin control until 1291. A similar strategy of concentrating almost all one's efforts on the citadel rather than the outer fortifications of a site was also employed by the Franks elsewhere along the coast of Levant. As a result, we observe why it was a very difficult task to besiege such coastal settlements with a very strong citadel. Back to the siege of Smyrna, the defenders threw everything they had at Timur. The besiegers were constantly bombarded with arrows, stones, and incendiary ports with posts filled with Greek fire. The Hospitallers successfully beat back a direct assault on the walls. Consequently, the Timurid army set to undermining the fortifications. They dug tunnels underneath the Hospitaller castle. When they lit the fuse of explosion materials they installed there, the castle's outer wall exploded, launching a handful of helpless defenders high. In the event, the knights were all quickly overwhelmed by the multitude of Timurids, and the Christian army broke rank and fled. The Mongol conquest was only temporary, but Smyrna was resumed by the Seljuk of Aydin and remained Ottoman. Grand Master Nailak made an attempt to reconquer Smyrna, but it said that his troops lost heart when the heads of their fellow knights who had capitulated were thrown at them from the walls of the castle. It is also interesting to note that Smyrna, along with other Christian outposts in Asia Minor, such as Korikos and Bodrum, were themselves further examples of the kind of coastal strongholds already mentioned at Kyzicus, Naxos, and Monevaskia, which owed their very existence to be a combination of good sea links and powerful fortifications. Between them, all these places created a network of safe anchorages, which were not only used by major expeditions such as Charles d'Anjou, campaigning against the Catalans, or the crusade against Smyrna, but would also protect much smaller naval forces to battle the piracy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And my last call for the Russian colleagues, if they are not here, I would start with the discussion. What do you think?
Yes, thank you very much for this, Ms. Rika. I just want to say, we should respect what they've done. Would you agree, perhaps, that I sort of summarize their work maybe shortly, and because I have their text, and I can summarize it in half a page and read it quickly.
Sure, please,
is that okay? Will it be all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. because, you know, they invested some time for this, and we should respect on, you know,
Well,
what they've
respect
done.
is
So
absolutely for everyone. That is
yeah, that's
out of the
kind. Thank you very
question.
much for this. So I quickly read it very,
Yes,
because
please.
everybody's becoming like sort of, you know, a little bit tired, but let me just, sorry, my computer is so slow, like myself. So let me just check if I can find it once again. I just sort of, yeah, I'm trying to fix it up. I know that everybody is like tired, but I will try to find this out first, and then yeah, just oh yes, okay, yeah, good. My computer is becoming more and more problematic. I think that I should find, you know, just buy a new one, because it's becoming like filled with so many things together. So that's the reason. Okay, I'm opening now, right now, my document, and then I will just read it out. I will summarize it. I'm not going to talk like hours long. I will just try to, yeah, just try to, so I'm gonna make it Russia. I'm trying to find it now. Oh, thing. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to Professor Werner Zeit for correcting some parts of this paper by our colleagues Nikolai Alexandrovich Alexandrenko and Vadim Vladislavovich Maiko. Both are from the Russian Academy of Sciences in Simferopol. And their paper is about the Molydubolon of Metrophanes of Smyrna from Byzantine Kherson. Okay, I will just summarize it very quickly. Sometimes Byzantine archaeological sites, and I just want to also let you read this text as well as I do. Let me just try to find it. Here you go. Yep. I think you guys can inspect it now, the text. I hope at least, yes, I guess Byzantine archaeological sites provide researchers a unique opportunity to introduce into scientific circulation interesting and additional information related to events of Byzantine history and the specific activities of famous historical characters appearing in written sources. Among the sigillographical finds from Kherson in Crimea, there is an excellent example that introduces us one of the widely known figures of the Byzantine Church. Unfortunately, the seal was broken in antiquity, and only half survived from it. Nevertheless, it is possible not only to determine its sigillographical type, but also to fully restore the content of the legend. The seal is characteristic of Byzantine sigillographical monuments depicting the image of the saint, a circular inscription of an appeal to divine help, and list of titles of the owner. At the same time, it is unique. It still has not able to find analogies. The corpus of church seals of Vincent Laurent presents the only molybdenum of the Smyrna. From Smyrna is the Metropolitan John, dated to the 10th to 11th century AD. So let's check this first, this seal. Here we have the seal that our Russian colleagues are trying to present in a, you know, with the drawing here. This is from Kherson. Here we have Kherson on Crimea, and we are in Izmir. So a long way up to northeast. Okay, so let's just know some more about the seal. What is the seal all about? Well, on the this is like 22 millimeter in diameter. This molybdenum. On the obverse, we have the image of the saint with rounded beard and mustache in sacred vestment, full face, and then he holds the gospel. And above his shoulders, there are small crosses. And our Russian colleagues do reconstruct it as Agia Polycarpo Boite to so dulo. And on the verse, they believe it should be Mitrophanes Metropolites Smyrnes, which means Metrophanes, the metropolitan of Smyrna. So initially, it was assumed that in the legend of the front side on the verse, it could contain any of the sayings related to the acts of Polycarp, but obviously the location of the inscription itself its beginning falls to the 10 o'clock and the dial, which is very uncharacteristic for Byzantine seals. What they believe is that they first would like to date it into the mid 10th century, but then they discuss about that in their text, and I would like to summarize that too and come to the conclusion. So they discuss about this personality in a broader sense, comparing it with some other places, Metrofinus of Smyrna. And in conclusion, they are saying that that they are also discussing about Polycarp and his relationship to this personality Metrofinus, and they're coming to the conclusion that so this certain seal is important both in terms of Smyrna and for the Byzantine heritage of Kherson. But I don't want to speculate more. I just wanted to, read a little bit of their text to respect their work. So thank you very much for your attention, also on behalf of our Russian colleagues.
Thank you very much for reading or summarizing this paper, and I think that colleagues can find it in the abstracts. And if you have interest, you can also write to our Russian colleagues. Their email is also in the list. So I think that the information have circulated in respect of the work of everyone and of the time of everyone. So since we have finished with the papers, I would like to open the floor for the discussion, and I would proceed in the order of presentations. But the papers that were read by our colleague Ergün will not be discussed because their authors are not here. So I suggest you write directly to them. But for those who are here, please put on your cameras and let's start our discussion. The first paper we heard today was by Maurizio Buora and by Ergün about Euthios, Bishop of Smyrna in the early Byzantine period. There was already one of the questions in the chat, which I would like to, if I manage to open it, yes. The question was by Muhammad Yakac. Is Roman Smyrna means Byzantine Smyrna or something different? If you would like to answer.
Right. Well, it depends on what actually he meant. Well, if it's something to do with the name of the city, I would say etymologically, during the Roman times, they were reading it as Smyrna, but during the Byzantine time, they started to read it, the Greek name of Smyrna, in a different form, but not as distinctively different, like the Greek minority in Izmir in the 19th century, like Zmirni, but in a form between Smyrna and Zmirni. So I would say the reading of Smyrna during the Byzantine period was not exactly the same as in Roman period. But for this, we have very few evidences because we don't have much written sources on the Byzantine period of Smyrna, so we cannot really make sure about this, how they were just reading it. And for historically, of course, Roman and Byzantine Smyrna are like day and night. During the Roman period, especially first and second centuries, beginning of second century, Smyrna was a big, large, extensive, and influential city in the eastern part of Aegean. But after the mid second century till 6th century AD, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It survived all the entire Byzantine period up to the end of the late medieval period, obviously. But it doesn't mean that it was as influential as in Hellenistic and early Roman period. So Smyrna was this legendary city, especially between the 1st century BC until beginning of 2nd century AD. So this 200 years were the golden age for Smyrna. But after the earthquake in mid-2nd century, it became, as I said, smaller and smaller. And this conference was dedicated for the Middle Ages of Smyrna to find out if we can, increase our knowledge about the city during this long period. And we see that the evidence is very scanty, very, very spread. And it is a little bit difficult to make sense through to make great knowledge and an extensive knowledge about Byzantine Smyrna through the sources. So I hope that this answer will be enough for Mr. Mohammed Yakac. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a question too regarding your presentation.
Thank you.
And you have mentioned that the slab, I mean, it is very convincing for the part of the iconography and the inscription. You think it was more likely an ambo slab? Whereas I think it could be one of the chancel screen slabs that have surrounded the area of the presbyterium, not necessarily so high, because it was intended that people would read the inscription and would be able to appreciate the donation of the bishop or whoever has donated the inscription. I have a very short follow-up again. Do you think that the inscription was written later on, because it does not really respect the ductos of the slab in general, and it seems to be somehow in the middle between the lines? So either it was scratched or it was applied later on a pre-existing slab, which happened quite often. But anyway, it depends on many reasons, on many aspects. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Well, thank you very much for this suggestion, because this also brings some more perspective into this epigraphic discussion, which is very valuable, because this was already very difficult with combining the epigraphic evidence with the iconography itself. So your question is bringing more insights and more perspective to this discussion. Thanks for this. So we're extending our discussion with this too, which is very important. I would like to, I cannot really answer the question very precisely because, we have very few evidence and all the evidences we have, I've just tried to present here. But I would like to add one more thing to support your idea or to help for your formulation. I forgot to mention about the letter forms and their contribution for the dating, because the forms are actually more reflecting 6th and 7th century AD forms, even though the text indicates earlier names, like, as I said, late 4th century. So there is a controversy over there. So you are right about to say or to suspect if this is secondary. And if it's secondary, why do we have these like earlier names, Onesimus, another one, which we know from Ephesus, So it's a complex thing. It's a complex thing. Maybe we have a second bishop with the same name, which is an unusual case, because the name is already very rare and very, I would say, unique. Very unusual, the form of the name, because we know it only from the Latin sources so far. And at the same time, why did they have earlier names with this later script form? So this is another magical aspect, or another unanswered question for all those things, even though this inscription is very short. So back to the first part of your question, yes, you're right, with assuming that it could be also another type of plate, because when I was in Italy with Dr. Bora, I don't know, he's still here, we visited together Grado, the harbor city of Aquileia in northeastern part of Italy, and we were able to inspect this nice early Byzantine church, not early Byzantine churches, but early Christian churches with lots of Byzantine elements. And as you perfectly said, these type of two peacocks flanking a vase type of plates were actually used more in front of altar rather than being in ambo. So yeah, this is another thing that we should formulate in our article. Where did they really put that actually in the church? Yeah, but you know, it's a difficult question to answer precisely. The very last thing that maybe I should confess is that on the upper part of the stone, there are two holes. These holes could be helping us to put them in a right order in the church design. But I need to go back to the museum to check it properly and to meet it. So your question is helpful for me because we'll be tomorrow in the museum.
Glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad that there's still possibility. There are always possibilities to reflect.
Always possibilities. And our article is now back for the second proofreading. So tomorrow, when we are with our colleagues, we will be in the museum. So I will go back again and then measure it and write these things on Monday again into the article. And you're perfectly right with your questions to suspect about you know, the position, the real position of that. So I will work on this on the weekend. Thank you very much for your help.
So are there further questions to this paper? If there is none, I see nothing in the chat.
Well, Robert, Leonard.
I'm gonna come in.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Regarding the inscription not being contemporary with the design, that would imply that this was some kind of a stock thing that you made up these tablets, plates with the confronted peacocks and the urn, but left the name blank. And that seems contrary to the sequence because the I don't see how that could be.
I never mentioned that.
Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
No. I never mentioned that they left the name blank. I said that the whole inscription was written afterwards.
Well, that's
Because
right. Well, it would be a blank after they made up the no?
No, not at all. I was saying just it does not respect a line. It doesn't stand in one line as if it was.
I see. It's squeezed in, is what you're saying.
Squeezed in. Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, very interesting. But at the same time, this blank thing that Robert says is an interesting issue, actually. But I never faced such an example here. And at the same time, the script seems to be sort of like, you know, from one hand, not for different hand, but blank. I would maybe think about that for the.
No, never. That I never suggested the inscription.
Yeah. But still, this also makes me think about the rest of the material we have, because it's interesting to point out for Izmir material that most of those plates or most of those architectural sculptural elements, ecclesiastical elements, church elements in Izmir are without inscriptions, of course. So I should really think if there are any names, were they really doing it secondarily, or were they leaving some blanks over there and then put them later?
No. That's absolutely to exclude, because the characters, the Greek letters are very similar from the paleographic point of view.
To each other.
So that is absolutely to exclude. My only suggestion was to think if or whether the text would have come later on the slab in a second moment. But that is something that one can see in comparison with other elements, of course.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a note on this and then also remark in our article. Thanks for this.
Elvin had a question, please, Elvin.
Well, as a follow-up, because it made me think, if the slab is made earlier than the inscription, could it be a kind of a spolia of earlier periods? Can you check that archaeologically?
I wish I could check, because
I wondered.
Because you know, we have very limited information about epigraphy of early Byzantine Smyrna. I wish I could check. And you know, these names that we found are just from indirect sources. For ecclesiastical history of Western Asia Minor, we have two sources. First, Michel Lecoin, and the second one is Federico Pedalto or something, his legendary book on 2008. The list of bishops in Western Asia Minor, and they're not complete at all. The name of episcopos and oikonomos in Western Asia Minor. So the only source which was useful for me was Ephesus. And but yeah, if they were secondarily written, this is a very good question. I need to go and check tomorrow before I come to a precise result with that.
Yes, thank you very much. So if there are no more questions, I will pass directly to the paper of Ergün, Contextualizing Late Antique Floor Mosaics of Secular Context from Izmir. While waiting that the audience will warm up, I have one short question for you. And have you tried to make parallels with the mosaics of Antioch and the secular context of the mosaics of Antioch? There have been a lot of discussion, obviously, on the dating, because if before they were thought to be more likely of the 4th century, now the idea is to putting them more into the late antiquity. And I wonder if there are any parallels, or if we can think of a local mosaic school in the area of Ephesus and Izmir, and of these mosaicists working and moving around these two sites. What ideas did you have about this? What do you think?
As a matter of fact, when I first started studying mosaics, I wanted to compare Ephesus mosaics of Roman time with those of Antioch. And what I came across is the western part is more affected from the trends in the Italian style for the first 2 centuries, while I couldn't see it in Zeugma or Antioch to the eastern part. Yes. And for the late antiquity, for Izmir, what I have seen is it is largely geometrical. Yes, there are some figural ones, but these are mostly faunal representations of animals. And for the late antiquity, I couldn't come up with any deities or personifications, while Antioch is abundant with that when compared to the other parts of Anatolia. Yes. So for that, they reflect different trends, but late antiquity is described as a transformation. So it is not white and black, but rather kind of a gray and shades of gray, if I may say so. So the Izmir mosaics reflect more of their Roman past, while the Antiochian ones more like the Hellenistic influence more than the rest. And also the Sasanian impact. For example, I've shown this lion mosaic from Ephesus. Very similar ones appear in Antioch, but what we see them, these are later periods. Ephesus is from Roman period, the Antioch ones form later, but they have these berry bones that reflect the Sasanian effect, for example, which I cannot see in Ephesus. But overall, there are overlapping trends, like when you look at the animals, for example, they are getting more flattish, more two-dimensional compared to the previous ones, like in Antioch as well, even though it is continuing with the Hellenistic tradition. So they are becoming more like the Byzantine that we usually see them as, because we are mostly focusing on the wall mosaics, but these are floor ones. So they are coming closer to what we normally usually define as Byzantine, the Middle Ages type of mosaics.
Thank you very much. Very interesting field of studies and extremely interesting material. Are there other questions? You can write in the chat, or you can just raise your hand. No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move further, and the next two papers in our list, the one of Chaglan and of Zaid, since the authors were not here, so please, if you have questions, you can write to them directly on the email, and same stands true for the paper of Alexienko and Maiko. The next is, again, I would like to ask Ergün if there are any comments on the paper, on the hoard of coins of Frankish Greece from Thyatira. Are there questions here? And this is also a publication in course, right?
Yes, I'm trying to finish it. I'm in number 17 still. Very slow.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to read the paper then.
Well, thank you very much. I will send you, of course, with great pleasure. Thank you.
No. Okay, are there questions to this paper? Okay, then we turn again to the next one, to the paper of Leonard about who issued the K-class imitation of Venetian ducats. I would have a question, Leonard, if I may, on these K-class ducats. Do you think, have you compared the weight of the coins? Respect of the official course?
The question is, have we weighed the coins? And the answer is the very earliest ones weigh very nearly the same as a genuine Venetian ducat. A Venetian ducat of this period should weigh about 3.52 grams.
Yes.
3.53 approximately. These come in a little under 3.5 grams, but the later ones are lighter. They're about 3.41. And there's some variation. So yes, they are somewhat on the light side in addition to being debased.
And my other question is, do you think that the K would refer to the place of mint?
I'm sorry, to the place of what?
Mint. Well, where the coin was minted, where it was struck. Yes,
you would think that. But we need proof. There are too many Ks or no Ks for places that seem likely. I am hoping that someone will actually excavate one of these someplace, because all we have is coins from commerce, and that tells us relatively little. So I am hoping that some archaeologists will report the discovery of one somewhere.
Yeah, thank you. Are there questions to this paper? Yes, Ergün, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a marginal question about the use of these coins as jewelry. Do you know where they were used, by whom?
I'm having you're breaking up a little bit. Your question was regarding the use of discovering these used as jewelry.
Yes.
I had hoped to look at the Ethnographic Museum in Izmir, but it's closed. As you probably know, there's a custom in the Balkans and the Middle East for brides to wear headdresses or necklaces or even vests of gold coins or silver coins. And these are the ones used as jewelry are not really very gold looking, but but I would hope that we find some. In fact, if anybody knows of any, I would very much like to know of that, because it would be useful to know what other coins are with them. They wouldn't all be these K imitations. We would hope there are other coins, because we don't know for sure what century they were made even. And secondly, I would like to know where they were found, the village or the locale where these come from. So I appeal to anyone who discovers one of these things. If you see there's one of these got a K on it, please let me know.
Because for the earlier Byzantine coins, I have seen some of these used as pendants in by the Vikings in Scandinavia. But these were the earlier ones. They were specifically made into jewelry pendants rather than using them. And there were many coins going upwards from the south, from the Middle East and Byzantine world to the north. But I wondered if this was the same kind of tradition that continued.
I don't think so. The Viking coins I'm familiar with that are made of jewelry are
Earlier.
They are pennies, silver pennies, and they were made into appears to be put on necklaces and stuff. But I think these were worn by men. I don't think it has anything to do with the elaborate and very valuable family treasures that were brought out for weddings.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no other questions, so we turn to the paper of Maniotis, Mongol siege warfare in Anatolia, the siege of ancient Smyrna in 1402. Thank you very much for this very interesting paper again, and we have certainly extremely important material here about the fortification and how these fortifications were resisting the siege during in wartime. Do we have other parallels to such narratives of siege besides the one of Smyrna?
I have presented Sidons, also Tartus, but the parallels I have chosen have to be sea castles, because we have also in the Western Europe, because Mongols raided across Europe, and also fortifications blockaded them their way, but I have chosen sea castles.
Yes, okay, understand.
As parallel. Okay.
Comments, questions? It's a bit far from my chronological horizons.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no other comments, I would like to close the session. Is that okay?
Yes. Oh, yes. Basema,
The
thank you
magical
very
chair.
much. Thank you very much. I mean, I appreciate so much your participation. You were one of the best chair that I ever had in my life. Thank you
you're too
so much
kind.
for this.
You're
Really, really appreciate it so much. You've done really good work.
Thanks to you, thanks to you. So thank you very much to all of you, to our wonderful presenters, to the papers that they presented. And I hope that there will be more discussions in the future, of course. This is just the beginning. I mean, it was a long day. So I wish you a nice visit tomorrow.
Thank
and
you.
I hope it will not rain, of course.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. So have a good evening to everybody from Izmir. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care
you.
of
All
yourself.
the
Bye-bye.
best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you.
Bye, guys.